Fabian Cancellara zat al een hele tijd achteraan zijn groepje van Radio Shack. En ja, hij was zo'n beetje aan het rondkijken, was eigenlijk vooral met andere dingen precies bezig dan met op de kasseien letten. En dan gebeurt zoiets. Veel te traag reed hij en dan ging hij tegen de vlakte, heel hard verschieten. Ook Dirk de Mol, zijn ploegleider, stond er meteen bij en hij zei ja, ik dacht even dat het voorbij was. Ik stopte even met ademen, zei Dirk de Mol. En dan bleek dat het misschien toch nogal meeviel, dat hij vooral verschoten was, Fabian Cancellara. Hij heeft dan 15, 20 kilometer in de auto gezeten. En toen hij van het ergste bekomen was, heeft hij gezegd, ik ga toch verder op de fiets, want ik wil terug dat gevoel van de kasseien hebben. Ik ga mijn trainingstocht verder zetten en dan heeft hij gewoon verder gereden. Nu, wat is de schade? Blijkbaar valt het mee. Hij gaat straks nog even onderzocht worden, maar dat is eigenlijk eerder om zeker te zijn. Alles lijkt in orde. En Dirk de Mol zei ons daarnet ook van ja, er is geen enkel probleem voor zondag. Hij zal zeker starten. Het enige probleem is natuurlijk gisteren gevallen, vandaag gevallen. Hopelijk kruipt dat niet in het hoofd.
Dans la région de Compiègne. Deuxième de l'étoile de Bessèges, c'est pour la ville de Roubaix, l'île métropole, la région Nord-Pas-de-Calais, Encel, parrain du match, signé des performances qui ont attiré les mains. On le voit actuellement, les secteurs, ce succès de Paris-Roubaix auquel il a participé. Il est vrai que ça arrivait pas très loin de Montron, où il réside. Donc on a vu également Dirk de Mol qui est maintenant à la direction du maillot jaune du Tour de France, Stéphane Delot. Donc les équipes, nous l'avons dit, donc
bonne course Sébastien.
Avec nous le créateur de l'équipe, Jäger, le multiple champion de Suisse, Henry Chaussler, le voilà qui descend du podium, deuxième de Milan-San Remo, deuxième du Tour des Flandres, quatrième cette année, excellent. Campbell, Gustav Erik Larsson, vice-champion olympique, et Sébastien Hinault qui vient de faire un remarquable Tour des Flandres. On se souvient que le coureur briochin avait été, n'est-ce pas, Jérôme Le Gall, le meilleur français sur les routes de Paris-Roubaix, où il avait terminé à la 9e place. Sébastien Hinault réalise de belles performances, et pourtant la saison avait bien mal commencé avec une chute sur les routes de Paris-Nice. La famille Chénel est au complet à la signature. Steve a dit à ses gamins, venez voir le podium, c'est là que vous serez, attention, dans une vingtaine d'années. Voilà, on applaudit la formation d'Etap Bandura. Voilà l'équipe dans laquelle on retrouve donc Jaap Blas, qui avait été plusieurs fois champion de Slovénie, 4 championnats nationaux. Bonjour, bonne chance. Voilà, par les champions contre la montre de son pays, il avait brillé avec les championnats du monde. Nous retrouvons également dans cette formation Clark, voilà également donc Gervers olympique, il fait également donc maillot à poids de meilleur grimpeur sur les routes du Tour de France. 10, Jorgensen qui a gagné en terre venu d'Allemagne, qui a gagné 2 fois en Picardie, il a gagné également encore un bon moment, mais c'est vrai que les conditions météo ce matin, lorsque le champion se compte une belle carte d'identité sportive, déjà pour certains d'entre eux, eh bien l'objectif de terminer sur le vélodrome, pour d'autres l'envie bien évidemment bien entendu de réussir un superbe parcours. Dans l'équipe Sochasson, on va retrouver du Nord et de la Picardie avec du soleil, du ciel bleu et évidemment des coureurs très ambitieux. Il y a au total près de 200 coureurs. Donc pour lui, c'est un point de départ qu'on va avoir une présentation de Sidi Gonzalez, puisqu'il nous reste un quart d'heure et seulement 4 équipes sur 25 ont signé la feuille de départ. Voilà, chez les juniors, il est encore dans la catégorie à Bâche. Tournée Bâche au Grand Prix Sama, on continue sur Brassens. Je vais vous dire, Paris-Roubaix, c'est une course en constante. On a toujours, et nous saluons Baden-Cook, donc sur le podium, l'ancien maillot vert du T. C'est exceptionnel. Hier, on a un ciel gris. Finalement, on a l'impression que même...
Merci.
Quand on repasse mentalement les deux seulement, alors ce qui veut dire que vous avez...
Et je vais vous dire, on a gagné le Puy du Clos de la Salle, il y a eu quand même... Et Paris-Roubaix, justement, l'un des événements bien que Monsieur de Gauchy était... la Japan Cup. Et puis, du côté de l'équipe Katyusha, nous avons Clément Bouvard, et 3e d'étape au Critérium international. Pierre-Luc Perrichon, du côté de maintenant, avec Gabriel
On a la première, Florian.
le corps venu de Norvège. Il a gagné sur les routes de France, au Rhône-Alpes. Donc, Boy Van Poppel, le champion australien Swarto Grady, vainqueur de Paris-Roubaix qui redescend du podium. Manu Karovic est un retour d'Espagne. Mathieu Heyman, il y a déjà... Voilà pour la formation Sky. On continue avec maintenant, eh bien, du côté de l'équipe Garmin, nous avions donc Power qui nous... Eh bien, aujourd'hui, c'est vrai que c'est l'un des sommets de la saison, non seulement en France, mais au niveau mondial. Équipe, donc Radio Shack nous rejoignent avec Irizar, le rouleur espagnol qui avait gagné au...
C'est Turo.
Ouais.
Turo Stegman. Bon.
Cyber. Stegman. Il y a le bidon, on va récupérer le bidon. Allez, Jérôme! Là, derrière. Allez, Lloyd! Oh là, Chavanel.
Daar achter zitten, kijk achter die zitten ze altijd.
Is de stofkoers leuk? Ja.
Ja, ja. Kijk, kijk, ze zijn er, Lucas. Kijk. Daar.
Achter die auto zijn ze, hè?
Hier, kijk hier. Wat tot de samen daar. Hey. Hier, ja. Rustig. Hier, Godin daar, cousin. Hier. Dingen was ook van het Durfbridge. De folder, heb je gezien? Ja. Hier, Stellert.
Zit in de gevallen hier.
Niet Là, ça me gonfle.
Allez, il y a encore des coureurs.
Il est peut-être dernier, mais il le fait. L'équipe. Bravo.
Viens avec moi. Tu restes là. Pantalon, hein.
Un vélo.
J'ai le vélo, moi.
Laisse-nous là, on va le ramasser. On peut le prendre là.
Ouais, bah.
Allez, hop.
C'est le c'est plus dur. Il a même pas chuté, c'est pour dire encore devant la balle. Devant le balai.
Allez, courage. Allez, courage. Hij is gevallen, hè? Ja, ik weet dat. Hé, kom maar! Oei, oei.
Hey, c'est pas tout.
twice this week. Fabian Cancellara will have to watch it here in the feed zone, because as we know, he's occasionally got caught out. It's Geraint Thomas on the front for Edvald Boasson-Hagen in the Norwegian champions jersey. As you can see, the weather's absolutely beautiful. It was so cold overnight, -3, but it's turned out to be absolutely lovely. Look at this. And at the moment, you are watching the back of Sogerson's Gevier-Gaumont as he puts his bottles in the cage and so forth. And Hausler is just ahead of him. Had a quick word with him last night. It's been extremely hectic on the front of the peloton with BMC, this Finny. Chellingy is in here. Bozic is in this group. There's been a lot of action as they fought to get onto the cobblestones, and you can see there's a little split here that has come through the feed zone and also the last section of cobbles. Ian Stannard had to fight back on to get into the peloton, along with Stan de Volder, who was caught out as well. Crashing already. Stuart O'Grady here on the front, and Boasson-Hagen pushing on a little bit. They have to try and attack here and break Radio Shack. Radio Shack had controlled the early breaks, letting nobody get away and bringing it all back together. But at the moment, there doesn't seem to be the will to push on really hard. There's still an awful long way to go with 135 kilometers to go. It'll be interesting to see what the tactic will be. Sitting next to me, 2 times a winner of Paris-Roubaix. If I needed any more of an apprenticeship in cycling, sitting next to this man is about as best as you could get. 34.5 kilometers still to go with Taylor Phinney here in the group. Had a chat with his father and mother yesterday about how he is. And this small group is beginning to try and put a little bit of pressure on. We're going to take a short commercial break. They've only got 10 seconds at the moment. Welcome back. They are on the section of cobblestones known as Saint-Python, with 130.9 kilometers still to go. And they may have actually just gone beyond that, and this breakaway is becoming a little bit more pushy. Although they've only got 8 seconds, it's putting pressure on people behind, and that's what we like to see. This is Vertin just before the section known as Saint-Martin, section 23 coming up. This is actually, they've just gone on to the Saint-Martin, and you can see that Radio Shack are having to do all the chasing here, and quite rightly too. Nobody can challenge Fabian Cancellara unless they really give it some job. Oh, this is wonderful to be able to see the dust being kicked up. Edvald Boasson-Hagen is in this leading group with Bozic. And Sky putting some pressure on as well. Blanco. They've only got 6 seconds and they're having to work very, very hard. And this is the will have to be the tactic. Try and kill off as many of the Radio Shack helpers as possible, as early as possible, and then put Fabian Cancellara under severe pressure. Well, the big turning point often for this race is the Tranchée d'Arenberg. Arenberg repaved over the last few years and not as rough as it used to be. Well, we sent an old stager across it yesterday to see exactly how it compares to when he was riding.
Hello. Hi.
Sean Kelly showing us what it's like to ride the Tranchée d'Arenberg, which will, of course, be one of the major attacking points here. It's one of the big turning points of the race. Sitting beside me is Sean Kelly. There are 10 seconds for these 4 men now up the road. Sean, do you enjoy riding over the cobblestones again? You've not been there for a while, really, on a bike.
Well, when you ride a little bit I was doing yesterday, it's okay, but when you have to ride over 50 kilometres a day, which the riders have to get through, and of course, you know, to get onto the cobblestones, it's always just hectic. As I mentioned there, you know, the first sections, there's always a big push on, a lot of pushing and shoving, but to get to onto Arenberg in a good position, it's just hectic there, and everybody wants to be in the top 25 riders, and you can have 150 riders fighting for that position up front. So, you know, the Arenberg section is a real nervous time, and an important section as well. To get through that, well, then you have, you know, some of the offences are over, but there's many more to come after Arenberg as well.
Welcome if you're just joining us. This is Paris-Roubaix 2013. Last year's champion from here, Tom Bonin, not here, of course, having crashed out in the Tour of Flanders last week with a hip and knee injury. And the overwhelming favourite, Fabian Cancellara, his Radio Shack team having to do a lot of work chasing people down. He's under pressure. He's fallen twice this week already. Once in training and once in Shell de Price. He's having a difficult week. Everybody's going to be looking at him, that's for sure. Welcome if you're joining us. Look at the day today. Absolutely beautiful. Very dusty out in the sections as well. And you know, that can be just as difficult for riders to keep a track of what's going on as when, and directors sportives, of course, as when it's wet and muddy. Dust absolutely everywhere. It was freezing cold overnight. Has turned out to be the most beautiful day. 15 seconds for 4 men up the road now, including Stuart O'Grady, a former winner here in Paris-Roubaix. 16 they have. Going to bring you a full update of exactly what's going on. It's always a bit hectic, the start of Paris-Roubaix, not just for the riders, one has to say. Pretty much hectic here in the velodrome as well, with technically setting everything up. We'll take a short commercial break. We'll bring you up to date with exactly what's going on in the race in just a second. 17 seconds a gap, 125 to O'Grady, former winner. But this has just happened. Johan Alfredo looking behind him to see where the car was, didn't see the traffic island. Oh, that has got to hurt. Johan Alfredo. And at the side of the road, not very happy at all. Alfredo on the ground and not having a good time whatsoever. This is the Verchamp Keranin, section 22. Let's have a look at the course then today as Radio Shack continue to try and do all the work to bring them down. 27 sections of cobblestones in all, running right the way through to Roubaix. Over 53 kilometres in the saddle on the pavé here. Not all of them are the same. They're quite different in character, some of them, and the Tranchée d'Arenberg, which you've just seen Sean Kelly on, is probably the most famous. For those people watching for the first time, this is the real hard man's classic. Nasty, nasty conditions to be in, riding along this all day, flat out. Sean, very briefly, how do you approach a race like this? How do you set up your bike? How are things different here?
Well, of course, the bike setup, there's quite a lot of special for Paris-Roubaix. Of course, the tyres are very important. You have the bigger tyres, 27mm tyres, where normally they use 23 in normal road racing, 23, 25. Some are using actually 29, they're talking about today, depending on the conditions. With the dry conditions, I think most of the riders, most of the teams will be using 27s. Then the bars, of course, you have extra taping on the bars. Some riders put on a second bar tape just to take some of the shock out of the handlebars coming through the handlebars as you go over the cobblestones. And the wheels, of course, as well. A lot of the riders use traditional rims, not as high profile as we see in the normal road racing. And the gearing then, of course, they do adjust that. The inside ring is normally a 44 inside ring. Other than that, it's quite straightforward. On the rear, the block is, you know, the from 11 upwards. And that's about it, really. And riding Paris-Roubaix, of course, it's a race where you have to be able to ride over the cobblestones. You need to be a big, powerful rider, first of all, able to, you know, turn the big gear. So it's not something at all for the climbers. They cannot do this because two lightweight riders, they just get bumped around all over the place. And bike handling, of course, is very important. And you know, when you look at the palmarès of this race, the Belgians, of course, they are very dominant because they have this sort of terrain in Belgium. they're riding on it from a very young age, and that is the advantage they have got. So that's the reason that the palmarès sheet here has a huge number of Belgian names.
Hugely. Kurt Steegmans, Matt Heyman, Stuart O'Grady and Koretsky of the Bretagne squad. It's a big field this, Sean. Lots of wild card teams.
Yes, a lot of wild cards, as we talked about yesterday. 5 wild card teams. 25 teams in total of 8 riders. A very big field. But there's a lot of the teams when you look at, and looking at the Escatel team, I think they will be happy. And I was reading one of the papers, they were saying, well, if we get one rider finish, we'll be happy with that. So that gives you an idea. Some of the teams here that are Pro Tour teams, but they do not have the riders at all to compete in this one, and they have major difficulty with getting a rider to finish.
Yeah, absolutely. Some of them are going to... Well, I mean, when you look at the start sheet for some of the wildcard teams, or even some of the bigger teams who are not used to being here too much. I mean, Euskaltel, for example, Bilbao, Garcia, Ross, Stefan Redokla, Sais, Schüler, Andres Schüler, and Jonas Tamaridis, the Greek rider. They must be in for a baptism of fire on roads like this. Well, it's an interesting tactic that's being played out at the moment here, Sean. For the first, third of this race, as you would expect, it sort of drifts along until they suddenly speed up for the first section of cobbles. The first 2 or 3 sections of cobbles, which came early on at 98 kilometers run. The first one was Torville-Ichy. They just go completely ballistic trying to get position on there.
Yes, well, to get onto the 4th section, and we did have a lot of hectic racing earlier on the day, because there's a lot of teams, as we just talked about, that would like to get into a breakaway and get to the 4th section of cobblestones with 8-10 minutes in advantage, but that's not the case. And I think the race was a little bit closed down. Radio Shack, I think they have to be careful that they do not allow a big group to get away of 12-15 riders in the early part of the day, because they're the ones everybody is going to look at. Radio Shack, because of Cancellara being such great form last week and the last number of weeks, they're just going to leave them do all the chasing. So I think that was the first tactic, and it worked out very well, because the 4th section of cobblestones, there was no real breakaway at all. And now we have these 4 riders out in head with 39 seconds on the bench at the moment, and we can see Radio Shack very prominent to the front of the group. But this is I think in control for Radio Shack at the moment to keep the lead on things, and that's what they want to do. So they've got through the first part of the race. I think everything is going well. Now Arenberg is going to be the important one to get through there, and to be sure that Cancellara has still a number of riders, because I think after Arenberg, depending on the situation, who is up front in the leading group, that's where it's the danger point, where we could see a group of some of the just outside of the top favourites trying to get ahead and get into that breakaway. We've seen in the past, I think 2 years ago, Van Sommer went away in a break and he won in that way. So there'll be a lot of riders, I think, and a lot of teams thinking of trying the same tactic today.
27 sections of pavé to cover, 52.6 kilometers. This is Coranang-Amman. 2,500 meters, 2.5 kilometers. This is a particularly rough one, and you can see for the first time from low down the way they're trying to ride this. And Sean will tell us, obviously, I mean, he's the man here. Riding in the middle is the least likelihood of punctures here.
Yes, well, if you ride in the middle, first of all, it's better to ride because of the punctures. If you ride on the side, you get a little bit of an easier ride. It's more comfortable, but the problem having a puncture, then it's huge. So the safe place to ride. And we can see there, the breakaway riders, they have a lot of room. 4 riders out in front, you can do that very well. But sometimes in the pellet zone, you don't have the choice. You have to ride on the side when you're passing other riders, and it's always a risky place to be for punctures.
Yeah, right on the side of the road as Matt Heyman is there, just trying to... there's quite a bit of runoff at either side of these roads. There's quite a bit of dirt. You can't really see it very easily here. Not at this section, obviously, because there's a bit of banking on either side. But when you get out into the flatter sections, you'll see there's quite a bit of dirt runoff at the side. And as Sean says, it's much easier to ride on that section as they are on the right-hand side here. But you do run the risk of picking up for punctures here.
And if you're hanging in the rear and you're really suffering, well then the bike automatically goes to the side, because it's just that fraction easier. And we can see the riders there. I am cycling. We could see one of the guys there. He's just riding on the side because he is hanging on, and that's what you do when you're under pressure and suffering big time.
Let's have a chat about some gossip and news when we get back. Let us take a commercial break. Back live. The dust being kicked up by the peloton. Rolling along is Jaroslav Popovic for Radio Shack. They're having to try and control this one. At the moment, they've got it in control. A little bit more panicky earlier on. But we've got a strong group gone away at the moment. Gert Steegmans of Omega Pharma Quickstep, Matt Heyman of Sky, Stuart O'Grady of Orica Green Edge, and Clement Koretsky of the Bretagne squad. Koretsky, well, he's only really his first year at this sort of level. Certainly his first Paris-Roubaix. He rode for Le Pont Marseille before, if I remember correctly. Before that, he was just an elite rider. He's a bit of a strong guy. He's ridden good races, you know, Tour of Norway, Paris-Camembert and so forth. He's the man at the back here on the grey, in the grey kit. Ahead of him in the black and blue is Sky's Matt Heyman. Gert Steegmans, the very, very tall man on the left-hand side. Sylvain Chavanel's the team leader there for him. And Stuart O'Grady, always present, a former winner of Paris-Roubaix. On to section 20 of cobbles. And now Greipel deciding to go for this one. Again. Well, there are some big sprint names in this tour, this Paris-Roubaix. Let's have a look at those names, Sean, in general, of people here. If we discount Fabian Cancellara for just a second, let's just hypothetically take him out of the issue of the picture. This race is wide open.
Yes, it is very much wide open. And if you look at, you know, the other riders who will be hoping, you know, to win the race first of all, and if that's not going to happen, if Cancellara, you know, is real dominant, which it looks he could be in the final, there's a lot of guys lining up, you know, to get onto the podium, second and third position, and you know, there's 15 names at least there. You know, Chavanel is there, Tepstra is another one who rode very well last year. You know, there's De Volder, but he's going to be, I think, sacrificed to work for Fabian Cancellara. Sebastian Turgot, will he do it right like last year where he finished second? Hushoft, Finney, Van Avermaet from BMC Racing, Bosenhagen, Stannard, they're the ones I think for Sky. If you look at Blanco, Pro Cycling, well, you have Bohm, you have maybe Talengi could be up there as well. So there's a huge number of names. If you look at Garmin Sharp, for example, Maskant, Van Summeren is very much in the running there. Katusha, Christoph, you could say, and then of course Lothar Bellasol. We've just seen Greipel going in the attack, and that's the same tactic as last year. They're trying to get up the road, get into the breakaways, but Jürgen Roland is the man I think who should be there. Posat.
Allez Clément!
Wasn't as dominant as we expected, but he's a sort of rider that could really put in a big performance today.
1 minute and 2 seconds the gap now for our four men. Yeah, there's some real outsiders. For me, I've got a sneaky feeling about a couple of riders as the outsiders. Alexander Christoph of Katusha is going so well at the moment, and this sort of conditions will suit him. Christoph, what about Björn Lurkemans? I mean, if you were to look at the betting on Lurkemans, who was over, I think he's about 120 to 1 yesterday, which seems like crazy odds for Lurkemans. He's always there or thereabouts, and he's not going so bad. Mathieu Ladagnou, another rider who could do really well here. Very
Two-time second, he's a third and a fourth. He's, you know, been up there so many times in the top 10. Looking good last week, you know, had a mechanical problem in the final of the Tour of Flanders, got back into that group. So, you know, the form is quite good. So he's a one that certainly was a chance there today to do a good performance.
Just a bit of news quickly. Johan Alfredo abandoned for Johan Alfredo. I'm not surprised. Crikey, he hit that central reservation hard, not looking where he was going. Just unfortunate, really, looking to where the car was, and voila, really having a difficult time. 1 minute 9 seconds for our 4 men. Matt Heyman of Sky, Stuart O'Grady of Orica Green Edge at the front there in the green, white and blue. Heyman in the black with the blue stripe of Sky. Behind him, the quick-step rider is Gert Stiegmans, and in the grey at the back of Britannia, we don't see them very often because they are only just stepped up to the pro-continental level, is Clément Koretsky. The French rider was formerly with La Pomme Marseille, the southern French club which breeds so many good riders. Dan Martin was there in the past. I think actually Roach was there as well. But anyway, Dan Martin was certainly there. Lots of good riders have raced with the La Pomme as a club. So many good names here. But looking past Fabian Cancellara at the moment is going to be awfully difficult. André Greipel is off in pursuit. He's got a long way to go, 1 minute and 13. But I think, what would be going through your mind, Sean, if you were one of the rivals of Fabian Cancellara here and you saw this race unfolding as it is now with 4 men up ahead, some good strong riders in there, including a former Paris-Roubaix winner. Greipel now off in pursuit. What would you want to be doing? Well, I think if you're a rider like we have out in front, for example, you know, Stiegmans, O'Grady, those style of riders, those level of riders, it's a perfect situation to be in a 4-man group at the moment with over a minute of an advantage. They are going to, you know, go on to the section, the important section in Arenberg, which is going to be, you know, the next real important part of the race for everybody. And if you can get into a group that we have a 4-man breakaway, it's a great situation to be in. And of course, Stewie O'Grady, experience, it's a big thing here. And you know, to get into that breakaway, Stiegmans as well, it was a real good move. The problem is for Greipel, he's going to make a big effort here to stay out in front. And if you get swallowed up before you get to Tronche d'Arenberg, well, then you're going to have difficulty, you know, staying up in the front of the bunch. So for Greipel, it's a bit of a no man's land for the moment. 1:23 is the gap. We've got them spreading out across the road. Nobody seems to be particularly concerned on chasing them. There's still 110 kilometres to go. 111th edition of Paris-Roubaix. We'll talk a little bit more about the technology and about the history of the race after a commercial break. We're trying to get them in early, as you can imagine, because all the racing happens in the last 60 kilometres or so here in Paris-Roubaix. There's a lot of people I know watching for the first time as well. I've got tons of things on Twitter. We'll talk to you about some stuff just after this break. Welcome back. This is a nice little breakaway, this, with Stuart O'Grady, former winner here in 2007. Sandwiched by Fabian Cancellara in 2006, his first win, and Tom Bonen, second win in 2008. O'Grady was allowed to escape and just rode very hard towards the end by himself. Great win for this man, Stuart O'Grady, the Australian. The first Australian to win, and in fact they're the only Australian to win at the moment here in Paris-Roubaix. And the chase has gone a little bit slack here. They're not bothering to shut this one down at the moment. Joseph Fischer, the first winner here of Paris-Roubaix in 1896. Interestingly, a well-known television provider back in the UK was putting in their race summary, or their summary as they do, of the programs that are coming up. When you switch on, what are you supposed to be watching? Well, it said defending champion Joseph Fischer. The race was on last year by Joseph Fischer, apparently. Very long race, as he started in 1896 in Paris and he arrived last year. But just about anybody has won this race. Sean, sitting next to me, won twice in 1984 and 1986. There are a number of director sportifs in the peloton today who've also won at Paris-Roubaix, and that gives you all that excellent experience as Fabian Cancellara is back at the car. Having a chat with one of those men who has a terrific amount of experience and a former winner himself, Dirk de Mol, who is the director sportif here. At least I should imagine that is Dirk de Mol in there. We can't see his face, but he is the man looking after Fabian Cancellara. De Mol actually went away in a breakaway, a long breakaway. He was there to police, but it is de Mol, who was there to police moves for Plankert, I think, when he was with ADR. And in the end, the favourites just looked at each other and didn't chase anybody down, and Dirk de Mol realised that and rode away from everybody to take the win. Wasn't expected to do it. He was there just to police things, but he took a win at Paris-Roubaix, and a win is a win. A little bit like Jan van Summeren's win a couple of years ago, when Van Summeren was allowed to ride because everybody else was watching Fabian Cancellara. And you have to wonder, Sean, is that likely to happen again today?
Well, I think now we can see the breakaway up front, the 4 men, you know, the advantage over 2 minutes at the moment. There's a little bit of downtime at the moment. Everybody seems to be getting something to eat. They feel, you know, the 4 men out in front is not any danger at the moment. So they're, you know, just taking it a little bit easier. We can see Cancellara going to the team car, getting some energy bars and stocking up on that. So it is a moment that, you know, they're going to be a bit of downtime, but not for long, because now we're coming to, you know, Bois de Wallers, and that's going to start really making everybody nervous. And I think the pace will just start to go up from here, because Bois de Wallers we have at 96 kilometers to finish, so we're getting quite close to that. And when we get through Bois de Wallers, I think there will be a situation where Cancellara, Radio Shack, they will have to be very careful that, you know, they do not allow a big break to get away, because that's we've seen in the past 2 years ago when Van Summeren, that was exactly the same situation where a big group rides away, and that is very difficult to control. If there's 12-15 riders up the road, it's really difficult for a team to pull that one back and to keep control on it.
3 former winners riding here in this year's Paris-Roubaix. Fabian Cancellara, of course, Stuart O'Grady, who's in the breakaway at the moment, and Johan van Summeren, who's in quite good form actually and leading the Garmin Sharp team. Very, very big. Oh, look, somebody else on the side of the road here requiring a bike change. It's Thor Hushovd. Hushovd, well, Hushovd, you get very short odds on the former world champion, and he's always been there or thereabouts. I'm not sure he's got the legs at the moment. In terrible weather, possibly he might have been a little better. I'm not at all sure. Either he's keeping his powder very, very dry, or he just doesn't have the legs at the moment. Sure.
Well, last week in the Tour of Flanders wasn't riding real well, but again, you know, the experience he have got, and you know, it's a big thing in the Paris-Roubaix. So I'd be not surprised if we see him in the final shake-up, but to be really good enough to win this one, it's going to be looking like it's difficult for Thor Hushovd. But again, Paris-Roubaix, it's such, you know, a race where you have to have a lot of luck as well, and you know, you can be the best like Cancellara. The form is so good, you know, much stronger than everybody else, but if you have a mechanical at the wrong moment, or you get him tied up in a crash at the vital moments, well, then you can, you know, lose all your chances of doing anything in the Paris-Roubaix.
It's Saxo Tinkoff now taking up the chase on the front. They don't want to let this get away too much. Macho Tozzato, nominally the road captain here, number 141, but Matti Breschel, I wonder if he's got a little bit more in his legs than he has done in the past. He's had a very disappointing couple of seasons for him anyway. But they're certainly wanting to keep the pace a little bit higher now, Saxo Tinkoff. They see that perhaps the gap is growing out a little bit too much. That'll suit Cancellara and the Radio Shack boys, as somebody else is doing the work for them here. Last year's winner, Tom. Crashed out in the Tour of Flanders, which left the field, as we thought, pretty wide open for Cancellara, but I'm not so sure. We'll just have to see. Anything can happen in this race. It just takes a puncture at the wrong time with some men up the road, and all sorts of things can go wrong. Last year's second-place man, Sebastian Turgot, leads Europcar. Not looking too bad, Turgot, Sean, but what do you think?
Well, I think last week in the Tour of Flanders he was there, and I think the form is, you know, pretty good. Again, you know, he finished second last year, and that will give him a big morale boost, and I'd not be surprised. I'd be expecting to see him in the final as well, but again, you know, maybe consistency. You know, he can do it on one occasion. He hasn't been a rider who's been up there a lot of times in the classics. I mean, up there in the top 3 on the podium, so it's going to be a big day for him, and certain. See the quick step rider on the front there looking about, and that is going to be a very familiar situation, because everybody will want to be staying on the front, keep their men, the top men in the team, the guys who are going to do the performance at the end of the race up there in front. And we can see here, you know, this section number 19, Houlet de Wallers, this is going to be an important one to be up there, because the following one comes very quickly afterwards. And as I said earlier on the programme, to get into Tronche-d'Armbreg, it's going to be a big fight, because everybody wants to be in that top 25-30 place. And as we can see, there's still a group of 90 riders, 80 riders in this leading group of big Bebets.
Yeah, they've really upped the pace along this one. Oh dear, another rider down on the floor. Is that one of the Garmin riders? No, Blanco. Oh, whoa, nasty. Caught something in the side of it. This is the problem. Everybody's jostling for room, and he's managed to clip a cone that's been left around somewhere. He might well have been off the main line of the road and gone down pretty hard there. Oh, that's difficult. André Greipel about to be swallowed up by the peloton led by Saxo Tinkoff here, unless another couple of riders are trying to get away. Not unusual to see a rider like Greipel doing well in a Paris-Roubaix. It suits big, strong riders, this, though, Sean, because it's just completely pan flat.
Yes.
Sånn her. Stand etter siden. Hva skal du? Derfra. Cancellara. Det volder i weer. Bardenas. Rijden. Hier.
Used back in the early 90s when it came over from mountain biking. RockShox provided road forks for these things. Somebody was saying, could you lock them out? Can't remember whether you could lock them out. I don't think you could. But they were almost like... Fortune, the road ones. 1:38 is the gap for our four men. It's come down about 30 seconds. We'll take a break. It's Paris-Roubaix. It's a beautiful day once again. Oops, running off the road. Having to get back on Thor Hushovd again. And Hushovd, well, he's having a bit of trouble at the moment, Thor Hushovd. Another puncture, I think, and trying to get back in. This is a big thing. Whilst the peloton slows down, maybe he can get back in, but the more effort you have to put in, Sean, the worse it's going to get later on, because you need maximum energy left on this race. Yes,
well, it's something you do not need in this part of the race, and especially as we come to the very important part of Arenberg. At Hushovd, we see that trying to get back in a little bit earlier on, having another puncture. It's not a good thing, but you just keep on battling. You try and just make it into the group here, as we see Hushovd is doing. Trying. We go to the section of Arenberg and then see how you feel, but you can pay for those efforts later in the day, because the Paris-Roubaix, it's such a difficult one. The cobblestone, so energy sapping, over 50 kilometers of cobbles, but you just keep on trying. You hope that you will get through the day, but when you make a number of those efforts, it's unless you're in real good shape, you normally pay for that in the end.
1:42 the gap. Sean and I are sat in the tribune here, which is in the stands at the Roubaix Velodrome, where they finished today. It's a beautiful day out there, although it's flipping cold under here, I can tell you. The sun never gets to this particular point on the track. What's more difficult to ride, Sean? A really wet, nasty Paris-Roubaix, or a very hot, very dry, dusty one? Because clearly they're going to go harder in this situation.
Much more of an enjoyable day, if you can call it that, but it does make it safer, because when you have the wet conditions, riders can slide off, come down very, very easily, crash, and when you try to avoid the crashes on the cobblestones, any little movement, down you go yourself. So it's certainly it's much safer in the drier conditions. But if you're hanging it down in the rear, then sometimes the dust is so much that you cannot see, visibility is so poor. But I think everybody would prefer the conditions we have today to the wet and wet, slippery cobble sections.
One minute and 43 seconds. Matthew Heyman leading Koretsky here, having a good time to get in this break, because it's quite a quality break to be in. Steegmans, O'Grady and Heyman, and young Clement Koretsky here in the grey of Bretagne. Good for them to get a berth in this race, Sean, because they are, this is one of the biggest races of the season, and a smallish team like Bretagne, although they're very, very committed, and they have been for many, many years, this is a really good race to be in.
Well, it's a great race to be in. First of all, to get a wild card entry, it's a big thing for a team like Bretagne, but to get they're getting airtime, and they're also, just letting the sponsors or the organisers, that the entry, that it was a good thing to take the team when you can get a man in this company, because he is in very good company with Heyman, O'Grady and Steegmans, some very good specialist classic riders. So a good ride by the rider from Bretagne.
Surrounded by motorcycles. They've got a Mavic neutral service motorcycle behind them. On the left hand. You can see the legacy of this area. It's mining. There's a little plinth and monument to the great rider Sean Stablinski here on the left-hand side as you go into Arenberg. Stablinski, a former... the mining background. Here we go. This is the Arenberg Trench as they're coming up to it. 4 riders. It's okay for these guys, but they are going to hit this as hard as they possibly can when they arrive with...
See some crashes before we get onto the cobblestones of Wallers. So, you know, back in the bunch is a real nervous time for everybody. But if you can make it into a breakaway and get into this section, as we have our 4 riders here, it's a lovely position to be in.
But you look at the bumping and boring of these men here. Now, behind them, though, Sean, it's going to be like a flat-out sprint, isn't it, to get in here at the right position. That's why Thor Hulshoft had a puncture exactly the wrong time. You've got to be at the front, and it's almost like a lead-out for a sprint to get into this Arenberg section.
Yes, and I think it... the big sprints we see at the end of a race, because there's so many riders want to be up front. Still with 80 riders, there's a lot of riders feeling really good, and yeah, it can be.
think it's Huterovic, I think, probably, who was in trouble there. This is Stuart O'Grady pushing on, and there are riders closing in. Now 43 seconds. At some point towards the end here now, sometimes, Sean, in the second half of the Amberg Trench, you see the big favourites. Out in the front, showing he's still fairly strong, or he is strong.
Yes, I think Finney is just probably a little bit nervous to get through this section, and of course the safest place to be out in front and just make your own way through, take your own line where you want to ride over the cobble section, and Finney is continuing on to push on here, but I think he will knock it off when he gets through this section and see what's what the situation is. As we can see here, still the big group of riders together, and it's going to be an important one, and tactic is going to be important here when we come out of this one, because I think we will see a lot of riders trying to get into a group, and we can see up front as well at the group of O'Grady, they're not really hammering it at this moment, they are just keeping out. Section.
Yeah, I'm not sure that they're all going for it here at all. They've got through it. As a little bit more effort goes into just looking around rather than going hard at it. I don't think anybody's gone particularly hard. Nice to see Bernie Eisel up towards the front of the group there as they got onto Finney. He was there, I think. These are our 4 breakaway men. They've got 38 seconds, but Sean doesn't look as though they want to really push hard at the moment. We're still 90 kilometres to go. They've just got to keep rolling along.
Well, I think... to come across to them, and that's what they need, because with 4 riders at the moment, with still over 90 kilometres to go, it's a long way with 4 riders, so they're probably hoping that they will be joined by some others out of the group.
I think they're all pretty happy that the weather is so much better than it has been over the last few weeks. Some big favourites. The last bomb was just looking up and across over the peloton. Lots of questions coming in about the, obviously on Twitter at Spokesmen, SPOKESMEN, about the technical aspects of the bikes. Once again, we're just having a look at some of them. Is looking at the bikes themselves. You can see a lot of them running these second levers now on the top of the bars, very cyclocross style. That's people were talking about those in Flanders last week, saying, well, we haven't seen those before. Very much an introduction in cyclocross. There are some riders, even in this group, riding cyclocross bikes. Good choice. I mean, for some riders, they really feel as though they are happier on that. The AG2R rider there has a cyclocross bike. You can tell from the big, thick, heavy forks and those cantilever brakes on it. Also, Europe, some of the French actually prefer going with those. The Europe car rider there at the back. Also, I think it's Bjorn Theroux, actually, Didi Theroux's son, who's running the cyclocross bike there. So cantilever brakes, bigger tyres, wider section tyres, as Sean was saying, 27s, all tubulars. Tubular tyres are great for this sort of thing, as Ladagnou comes towards the front, and just we're looking behind to see if anybody's going to give us some help. José Van Gutierrez there as well, behind him in the blue of Movistar. Tubular tyres much more capable of dealing with those big hits, because they squash, well, they squash better. They're obviously just a tube. Somebody asking the question, is it inevitable you're going to puncture at Paris-Roubaix? Not at all. There are a lot of punctures, though. In fact, you punctured, didn't you, Sean, when you were recceing yesterday?
Yes, in the last 200 metres, I had a flat, and it's not the first time I've had one arm broke. When I was competing as well, one year I did have about halfway through the Arenberg section, I had a flat and had to ride all the way to the end. Yeah, it's real nervous times when you do have a flat at this moment, because we can see here the group of big favourites. There's maybe 45 riders, 50 riders. It's interesting now to see how many riders will make their way back in. We can see here there's a number of riders trying to make it back into that group, and I think this group will grow a bit, because there's a lot of tactics going on here. We can see off the front there's 4 riders trying to pull away, but a lot of action on the front of the bunch, and if we get a little bit where they start looking at each other and the teams waiting, well, then there will be a lot more riders will make it back into the main peloton.
Sector 17 as we count down for the breakaway riders at Wallace here. Going through the newly reintroduced Pont-Gibus section. Very tight, because it's a little railway bridge and very narrow underneath, and I have to all be pretty careful about that as the rest of the peloton decide to enter at this point in our picture. And I'm glad we've got some new fans of Paris-Roubaix. Somebody's just sent me a picture of their small boy watching. He must be about 4 or 5. I don't know if my little one's watching. He's probably racing around screaming around the house doing something. Cannondale, Blanco, Cofidis at the front. There's the Pont-Gibus as our riders go through it. This has just been resurfaced with cobbles. All the salt cobble sets have been put in, terribly dusty, but it's all been done by the friends of Paris-Roubaix. This section reintroduced, hasn't been in the Paris-Roubaix for quite a while. There you are. You can see how narrow that little bridge is. It's a good job they're all strung out here. Very dusty, this section, Sean.
Yes, and I think it's more dusty it'll get during the day, because with the sunshine we've got, and I think the drying conditions, it will get real dust in the end. But again, as we can see here, it's not a problem for the riders. The visibility is quite good, and it's certainly much better conditions than if we had the rain and that real slippery conditions. It would not be nice at all, and that will also have an effect on the race, because the riders will hang in much longer. I think we will have riders coming back after getting over the sections, so the number of riders in the main peloton will be quite big for a long time, where if you have real horrible conditions, wet sections of cobbles, well then through crashes you will lose a lot of riders, where today we haven't got that situation.
And the fans just having to get out of the road as we enter A tarmac link between our cobbled sections now. We've just been through the section of Hualaz. Now we're going to Honan. And the problem with setting a bike up for these cobbles is it's been more better these days, but setting things up in the past is you have to make the bike handle on the road as well as off it. It's not just a case of having one that goes over cobblestones. There are 52.6 kilometers of cobbles to go over, and 202 kilometers in total to ride. So it's not just a case of setting up your bike for cobbles. You've got to be able to ride on the road with it as well. See how wide the tires are compared to normal. Look. Running at lesser pressures as well, and that also makes it a little bit more hard going. Something like 50 psi, maybe even less for some. Between 45 and 60, depending on what they want to run. .22 seconds for our front four men. There's a chasing group of 7 now, trying to get across to them, make a bigger group. They might just ease up a little bit here as they see them coming across. Here we go. Stiegmans, Heyman, Koretsky, and O'Grady here, being chased by Robert Wagner, the Blanco rider, with the roundels on the end of his, or the bands on the end of his sleeve, for former German champion. William Bonnet of Francis de Jeux, Jens Kukeler of Orica Green Edge, Marco Bandiera of I Am Cycling, Christian Corrin is also in there, and Adrien Petit of Cofidis. Cannondale is Christian Corrin's team, of course, was riding for Liquid Gas before, but they're not very far behind, are they, the peloton? 19 seconds only is the gap between the two. O'Grady, winner in 2007. Here are the chasing group. Wagner on the front. Bonnet coming through, big rider. I'll tell you another rider who might do well today is Sebastianino from IAM. There's still such a long way to go, 83 kilometers. And some riders really hanging on though at the back now. Becoming a little bit difficult for some already, as trying to stamp down on the pedals and stay up with everybody else is Johan Labon. Well, this group of 7 not managed to get too far away. .14 seconds now, coming back together. It's been an interesting day so far. Lots of attacks early on, and Radio Shack having to respond to them. Looked like a promising breakaway, this one, but it's been brought back together. It's not just been Radio Shack that had to do the work here to pull it back. There's been lots of other teams doing the chasing to drag things all back together. It's very interesting, nothing being able to get away. And this seems to have been the pattern, Sean, for a number of races now, or certainly for a couple of years. There's not anything really being let get away, not the big long breaks we used to have.
Well, I think we've seen it of very recent. The Tour of Flanders last week, it was 90k into the race before the group of 7 were allowed to get away, and that wasn't from the want of trying, certainly, because the pace was really high. They were riding at 44, 45 average in the first 2 hours, I think it was, and it's just that so many teams want to be represented up front. They want to get a man in the breakaway. You get 4 or 5 riders get out ahead, as we have here, and there's other teams always want to chase. And of course, with Cancellara being the big favourite, well then Radio Shack controlling quite a lot. But it's not only Radio Shack, as you say, other teams as well, and we can see the situation here. A lot of teams trying to get off the front. Radio Shack are just allowing that to happen at the moment. Allow those riders to have a bit of a race between themselves, and just leave it happen, and to get into the race as far as possible before they have to take control, if they have to take control of the race. And that is something tactically, if you can do that, the moment you have to do, you have the riders there. But when there's other teams up front and attacking and keeping the pace very high, well then you just allow them to do that.
Radio Shack have 3 men on the front of the main peloton. The third one is Fabian Cancellara. This is section 16. This is a long one. Nearly 4 kilometers of this, but this one was in, I think, the Tour a couple of years ago, or 3 or 4 years ago, and not actually quite as rough as some of the others, but long. We finished the Tour de France in Arenberg. Not on the Tanché at Arenberg, but they finished actually at the town of Arenberg, and I think Thor Hushovd won the stage, I remember. Geraint Thomas was right at the front and made a go for it at the end, and I think Thor Hushovd picked everybody to the line. It was the time when we saw Armstrong came back, didn't he? And he punctured twice. He was with Radio Shack, and he punctured twice on the cobbled section, and I was amazed how well Fabian Alberto Contador rode the cobbles. We were quite surprised. I saw Johan van Summeren up towards the front as well. Van Summeren, well, I think he's going quite well, Van Summeren. Definitely an outside contender, that's for sure. He's a former winner here. Very long section of cobbles. 11 seconds only for our breakaway men then. And as you can see, you can even see it from the motorcycle here, it's not quite as rough, this, as some of the others. Well, what about some of those outsiders that could upset the apple cart today? I think there's a number of names who you could see, if they have the legs, somewhere towards the front. Sebastianino we mentioned already. He was good in Tour of Flanders. Hausler seems to be getting a little better as time goes on. Maybe we'll see him in the front. Degenkolb, what do you think of Degenkolb, Sean? He's certainly got the build for it. Looked very happy yesterday, and I think it's been going all right.
Yes, he's certainly got the build, and he's got the power. He's a big, powerful rider, and he should be certainly able to do this one, you know, pan flat, and it will be interesting to see. And he's proved in the past that he can do the distance as well, and that is the important thing in the big classics where you have the 260 kilometers. Some of the riders have difficulty getting through that, and I think Degenkolb should be there today. Also, with the drier conditions, you know, the riders who are maybe not as experienced as some of the real big favourites here, Degenkolb maybe wouldn't have that great experience, but still, you know, with the dry conditions today, it should suit him that little bit better.
Other riders that might well be up there. Well, we haven't a clue what Pippo Pozzato will do. Filippo Pozzato is either really good or complete rubbish. Last week in Flanders, he was complete rubbish, but then he was just nowhere to be seen, to be honest. It's a bit unfair on him, but he wasn't anywhere to be seen. Jürgen Rollins, this is Michael Schaar, the Swiss rider, going up the outside on the grass section, getting around them and trying to get away. Jürgen Rollins was very good last week in Tour of Flanders, and he's certainly got the form. If he can carry that through the week, as you most usually can, he could well be up there. Dmitry Murev, you never know, he's a very strong rider, and sometimes he really turns in an interesting performance in races like this. Bozic, what do you think of Bozic? He's getting stronger and stronger each year, I think.
Yes, I think Bozic is performing well, but again, Paris-Roubaix maybe, you know, that little bit more difficult. So many kilometers of cobbles, you know.
Tu les as vus? Ouais, je l'ai vu, ouais. Bah ouais, regarde, ils sont chacun d'un côté. Anita, elle arrive d'un côté, Christian, il est de l'autre côté.
Qu'est-ce que vous avez derrière?
Restez là.
Devant.
Allez, restez là, on bouge plus.
Je vais voir l'autre.
Bougez plus, là.
Quand même à de poussière, on verrait plus de choses. Hein.
C'est la course de moto, la course des vélos. Bah, la course des vélos.
Attention, il roule de ce côté-là. Hein.
Allez, regarde, c'est le premier.
Allez.
Bonnie.
Allez.
Attention, Roland.
Hey,
Vélo. Viens, ramène-toi ici, là.
Ah ouais, mais regarde. Bravo.
il est en train de
On va plein.
il est peut-être crevé.
Allez, v'là, allez, v'là. Restez là.
Cours.
Mais non.
Ramène Clara.
Là. Regarde les vélos, fais coucou.
Clara, viens là. Elle est passée avant.
Elle est passée avant, déjà 1h30 elle était...
Avant. C'est bon, elle est passée avant. Ah oui, c'est en avance aussi alors.
Ah oui.
Thomas having a little bit of trouble on the Arenberg there, but not really a problem. Stannard crashing earlier in the day. We're back on Eisel. He's a big threat. Bernard Eisel. Stannard, of course, and Thomas, both specialists at this sort of thing. Thomas has been very successful. Second last year, of course. But for me, there's Arnaud Demer. What do you think about Arnaud Demer, the young sprinter? I don't think he's too bad for this either.
Allez, Clément!
Again, you know, as a sprinter, you know, you can ride. You know, they're so good bike handlers. It is important. It's an important part of this race, and we've seen Armand de Meer, you know, in the sprints. He is a spectacular bike handler, so he should be able to get through it. Will he have the, you know, the energy and the power in the end? I would be concerned about that he will run out in the final 35 kilometres when the race is really going. But it depends if he can get into a move that goes, you know, 40-50 kilometres in the finish. I think that will be the opportunity for a rider like Armand de Meer.
Just as you see in Flanders as well, just to make sure that everybody is, as Bozic, we were just talking about him, to make sure that everybody has got what they need. And does Bozic run wide, or does he stop to take a wheel? No, runs wide. I think avoiding the Blanco mechanic actually. Ladagnou can do well, I think, here. Lars Bohm, we know, can go very well here.
Tu vas à l'attaque. Passez au coup de poing. La porte, il y a un problème. La porte elle est ouverte. Ah, la voiture elle a...
Sean, we were talking about him over dinner last night. I think he really has to show something today.
Well, I think you know, we've been expecting him to show well in the last number of years, and last year we remember that he was in that final shake-up, and when Tom Bona went in the attack, we did see Sky riding, and it was for Bosenhagen, but he just ran out of power in the final 25 kilometres. He is in good shape, and to be interesting to see what he can do today. You know, he is due a big performance because he's that style of rider. He's a big, strong, powerful rider. He's proved that in the past, and I am a little bit surprised that it's taken him so long to really shine in the final of the big classics.
53 seconds now, and Radio Shack in control. Hard work for mechanics and soigneurs on this race. You have to be in all the right places at all the right times. 76.5 to go. Welcome back. Oh, it's exciting. It's Paris-Roubaix. And the weather's fantastic. And the junior Paris-Roubaix. It is yet, but there's a Danish guy, I think, who's just come over the line first. And I think I saw a Sky skin suit third, but or Sky backed skin suit. British one. We'll just have to see, get the results of that. This is the section of Wallang. Steegmans and Heyman pressing on by themselves here. Heyman's a good rider for this race, Sean. In fact, they were sort of... sometimes in terms of riders of Sky, but Heyman another good rider. We haven't mentioned Juan Antonio Flecha much yet, apart from early on in the broadcast. He's so close all the time, and he wasn't that bad at Flanders either. Had a mechanical late on, had to chase back on, and did that with some style, some aplomb.
Yes, very impressive, because it was in closer on the 25 kilometers to the finish, and the race was really on. And when he had the mechanical, I thought it was going to be over for him, that he would never see that group of big favourites again. But managed to make his way back into it, and that proves that, you know, he was still quite comfortable when he had the mechanical at that point. And it is you know, it is good to see that, and he has certainly the experience, because, you know, every time he rides.
Ja, dat. Zie je ze? Ja, dat is het. Het notto hier. Maar het gebeurt toch eens. Daar rijden ze? Hier, vrije. Achter notto zijn ze. Ah, waarom? Nee. Die vier nog. Thema is een Heyman.
The places in the top 10, and you know, second, thirds and fourths, all sorts of places, but never the winner. So he could do it today.
Look at this. Oh, on the cobbles again, and right in the middle. Just a coming together, 2 or 3 riders ending up in the ditch on the left-hand side, I fear, and the right-hand side as well. Is everybody up? Okay, Bozic, one of the riders down. A Vacon Soleil rider on the floor. Is that Thomas again? Geraint Thomas getting caught up in another crash. And down towards the back of the peloton, the rider from Bretagne is Gaël Malacan. Mathieu Ladagnu being caught up in this as well, but seems to be back on the bike. But Thomas again on the ground. Bozic looking extremely dusty, and the Vacon Soleil rider all curled up, couldn't quite see who it was.
No, and unfortunate for Geraint Thomas once again. He was you know, caught up in that crash, as we see.
Puncture for Koretsky.
Yes, and it's I think it's a moment where he's just about, you know, hanging out there, and he's paying for the efforts earlier on. The stronger men, as we can see out front, you know, are pushing on, but you know, that is such a familiar sight of Paris-Roubaix, the crashes, even in the dry conditions. You know, there's always going to be quite...
Volgens mij vliegt hij naar achteren. Ja? BMC. Is dat van Avermaat? Van O'Grady? Ah, Finny. Yeah. O'Grady. ze... Hè? Ja, maar roepjes en zo, ja, per die op de Cancellara, ja. Cancellara. Super. Hier de stand. Gitarrenfiets. Dit laden. Ja, toch laten. Het is goed hier. Kees is extra. Hidden. Oh. Heel af, zeg. Dat de jongens deden, want die lost gewoon niet. En dan denk ik was ook bij Niklas Maas. Ah, was dat Niklas Maas? Hier, die reed af. Hier, die was... Hier, die reed af. Ah. Dingen, die reed Thomas. Ja, Thomas is een man gewoon, hè. Passor. Allez.
Pozzato being held up by the crash and trying to work his way back on as hard as possible here. Manuel Cancellara is the rider from BMC. Distinctive style. He's very, very slender, but with quite a big head. You can see him quite easily. Yannis Tamaridis in this group, the Greek track sprinter. Oh, he's got some illustrious company with him. This must be real hell for the Greek guy. There he is for Euskaltel. And this is right at the back, Jonas Jorgen.
Paris-Roubaix, you can be just in the unlucky place at that moment.
Oh dear, one or two go down and then it's absolute carnage. Running into the ditches either side, and then further back, somebody just pulling on the anchors a little bit hard there, Sean, about 5 or 6 back from the crowd. Luca Paolini riding up towards the front with the white helmet and the red and white there. Again, he was one of my outside choices for the Tour of Flanders. The pursuing riders at 27 seconds. That's the two behind our lead men, Gert Steegmans and Matthew.
Ja. Allez, Bardonas. Reines van de Tour.
Shah and Stuart O'Grady are trying to catch them. These are our two leading men. Heyman and Steegmans. Steegmans often the lead-out man for Tom Bonen. A bit off the leash here today, Sean. He can do as he likes, really. He's got, although he has still got Sylvain Shah.
Hey, go on.
May or may not want to be worked for.
Well, I think Omega Pharma Quick Step, you know, they haven't got a real big favourite like, for example, last year with Tom Bonen. He was in unbelievable condition. And
dat is ongelooflijk, hè. Hey. Nog een van Sky. Paini. Hey. 22. Puccio, okay, die kan niet meer bezig. Waar is pad? Hey.
Last year with Sylvain Chavanel, he's riding very well, but I don't think they're going to, play solely that card and everybody working for him. And they put Stigmans out in front, and
look at the quick step. Aye. Aye. On the road. Ik Garcia van hier. Die wou lekker een band. Graziato. Marcus Eichler. Astana. Wie van Astana had je de klasse? Hier, Dervish.
I think that is the tactic I know they have planned, and the problem is for the two here at the moment, just over a minute in advance, still over 70 kilometers to go. They have been out for a long time now. It is going to be a big ask for them to hold on out there all the way to the finish. They need it hasn't happened, or it hasn't been allowed maybe by the other teams, and Radio Shack I think are the ones which maybe are taking control of the situation. When there's a bigger group trying to escape off the front of the bunch, well then they close it down very quickly. And for me, I think for Cancellara everything is working to plan at the moment, because they had it pretty much
through the cobbles now, the crown of the road. Shah still staying on the left-hand side. This is a rather rough section at Tilloy, which is why they went for the gutter first of all, and Shah just moving over to the right-hand side, adjusting his line, using his shoulders and his body weight to keep that bike in line. A number of people writing in as they get to Tilloy, the peloton, on @spokesman, including the Fine website, Fine blog site, In a Ring, saying there were stories of 2 cars being removed from the race for bad driving. Have you heard any confirmation of that? No, we haven't heard confirmation, but we did hear Jean-François Pechot giving it large, shall we say, to BMC and Francis de Jeux, I think it was. Back in line. We don't know is the answer to that. I wouldn't think so, but it's certainly been he was certainly giving them a right old yelling, Sean.
Yes, he was, and that is Paris-Roubaix. The director sportives and the team cars, they really pushed their luck to the limits, and of course Jean-François Pechot, the director of the race, he was getting very, very aggressive on radio tour, and you have to, because if you take, for example, the Arenberg section, a lot of the team cars, you have your number and you have to stay to that line in the cavalcade, but a lot of the team cars and the peloton. He put his hands up, he called for the car just as you get to Arenberg, just to get a good position for the car going into Arenberg. You may not need any service at all, but you can still put up your hand and say you want to give a raincoat or your arm warmers, and that's where they're really strict. So I think Jean-Francois Pichot was just really laying down the law and making sure that all the teams behaved to the regulations.
Tor Hushovd, well, this is Michael Schär we're watching, but Tor Hushovd's had another puncture. And not being a good day for Hushovd. Whee, come on, Michael. Stay online. Well, he's got the bit between his teeth, trying to get across to Gert Steegmans and Matt Hayman. He's left to the former winner, Stuart O'Grady, behind him, and Hayman pushing on at the front here with Steegmans in his wheel. Schär will try and get across to them. I wouldn't be surprised if he does get across to them. Is there anybody unluckier than Geraint Thomas, somebody writes? Is it unlucky, or do you make your luck, Sean?
Well, that is
a bit of both.
Yes, that is the question. You make it, yeah. You make it sometimes, and sometimes there's experience as well. That you see those things are going to happen. But with the crashes, it's very, very difficult. It just happens so quickly. We see there that crash where Geraint Thomas. It looked to me that maybe a rider touched the wheel, and down he went, and of course then panic braking, and a lot more riders crashed into each other further back in the peloton. But yeah, it's unlucky. And you talk about Tor Hushovd now. He's had, this is third time he's a mechanical today, so he's been, really unlucky today. And that's something, the mechanical, it's difficult to avoid. But if you're riding real well, you're feeling comfortable, it's amazing how much you can avoid some of the maybe the holes in the sections of cobblestones where it's a little bit more uneven surface. When you're in good condition, you can ride, you can pick your line much better. But when you start getting tired, that's the time you do not see those sections, and your reaction is not as quick. But I think at this moment, for the rider like Tor Hushovd, he shouldn't have a problem at the moment. So I think it's just totally unlucky on the day, and having so many punctures, and that's going to be, as we mentioned earlier on, it's going to be difficult for Hushovd. If he does make it back into the leading group, I think from all the efforts he's been making to get back into the peloton, he has. Kilometers an hour here on the road with Gert Steegmans and Matt Hayman. That's what it says on the dial there. There you can see in the back of the Specialized bike of Gert Steegmans those little shock absorbing I guess would be wrong, shock dampening sections in the seat stays, and there's also similar in the forks as well. A lot of people were asking, is suspension banned? No, they're not. It's not banned at all. It was used 15 years ago now, let me think. Yeah, about that. 20 years ago actually. And they just found it wasn't quite as good, really. You had to ride the road sections as well as the off-road sections, and that makes it very difficult. Just makes it a bit heavier and more unwieldy. There is Steegmans' bike. If we get a wider shot, you'll see those elastomer sort of sections in the front fork as well. As Michael Schär comes, and this is Hushovd coming back in. Tor Hushovd, another effort had to be made to get back into the peloton here after a third mechanical already. Unlucky for the Norwegian, really unlucky. 1:14 the gap for our breakaway men over the peloton as Hushovd makes. Welcome back. Sylvain Chavanel replete with food now. Stuffing it in his back pocket. Little casquette turned up at the front. Very classy, very classy. We like that. With 65.5 kilometers still to go. Or sheep. Next big
section of cobblestones still to go, and obviously there are some very, very important places still we're going to get through in terms of cobbles. There's a lot still available here in this race for anybody who wants to have the nous and the courage to get away. Thor Hushovd, who's had all sorts of troubles today. 3 mechanicals, 2 punctures at least today. Not sure what the 3rd mechanical was. Could well have been another puncture. And he's managed to get back onto the peloton again. Has he got the legs? We don't know. We just don't know his form. So let's ask him what he thinks anyway.
It's the most beautiful one the race there is in cycling. So and also the race, the biggest race I can win. I've been closest to win. So I'm going to do everything I can to stay in the front, be on the podium, and why not win?
And for someone who is watching the race for the first time of his life, what are the key points of this race?
Oh, there are some key points. Yeah, there's few. I mean, with Arenberg and the sections after Arenberg is important, and because it's the hardest one, and that's where you make the selection. So, but you know, you always have to race in front on this race, because if you race behind, there's a crash in front of you, the race is over.
And one word about the Carrefour de l'Arbre when you crashed a few years ago.
Yeah, Carrefour de l'Arbre is, I would say, it's the last key point. That's the last hardest cobblestone section. So there you can lose the race, you can get dropped because it's so hard, and also you can do like me, crash in the last corner. But in this year.
Thor Hushovd, fairly upbeat, really. I'm not sure he's thinking exactly the same now. Having 3 mechanicals, 64 to go. Wallop into another section of cobblestones for our peloton. This is Orchy, and Stuart O'Grady has been swallowed up. Michael Schaar still by himself, trying to hunt down Gert Steegmans and Matt Heyman. And now new people. This is a good opportunity, Sean, for people to go on a bit of a counter here.
Well, I think if there's a little bit of slowdown on the front of the peloton, there will be a lot of riders who will try and go in the counter, and that will be the tactic and the orders coming from team directors. But when you look at the, I think we're roughly about 12-15 minutes up on the fast surge average time, which is 42 kilometers per hour. So we have been going real fast, and the pace has been very high all the time. After coming through Bois de Wallers, it did slow down for a moment, but only for a little while, and the pace is still just real high. So it's going to be difficult for a rider or a group of 2 or 3 riders to get out of the front of the peloton. You have to have a group of 12-15 men to have any chance of pulling a big advantage or a nice advantage from the front of the peloton, and it doesn't look like that's happening at the moment for anybody or any team.
Still pretty chilly here under the awning. I'm looking down to the seats on the other side of the corridor, just ahead of us. And the next platform down, whoever those guests are, they seem to have nice bunches of treats on the seats. We'll have to go and raid them later. I'll send Sean out on a raiding party. So it's good. Having a double Paris-Roubaix winner with you is very good, because if you take anybody's sweeties, nobody complains. 1 minute and 9 seconds is the gap.
And now we can see the dry conditions. The riders can ride, on the side, off the stone sections totally. And with the dry conditions we've been getting the last number of days, you can do that, and you save that little bit of energy here, and that is important for later on. So any opportunity, any occasion the riders get that, they will do that. But again, as we said, sometimes there's a bit too much grit on the side, so that is always a risk when you do that. But we could see the riders riding on the grass there, and it's so dry, and it's been so dry, it's possible to do that here today.
One of the other bikes in the peloton that's showing, that was pioneered last year by Fabian Cancellara, that's giving a little bit more comfort, and apparently works absolutely brilliantly. I confess I've not ridden one yet. Is the new, well, not so much new now, but the Domain, the Trek Domain, which has not a has almost a pivot point around where the seat cluster is, where the seat stay joins the down tube and the top tube, and allows a flex in there. It's nearly 3 centimeters, 30 millimeters. Apparently works absolutely brilliantly, so I've heard. Going well, these two. Bert Steegmans looking good, as is Matt Heyman of Sky behind him. This is Michael Schär riding by himself to try and get across here. A lot of effort expended to get over to these two other riders. Beautiful day here in this is Damien Goudin of Europe Cup, wore the yellow jersey in Paris-Nice, having won the prologue, which was rather a surprise, Sean.
Yes, it was a surprise. He certainly, did a great performance in the Paris-Nice, but he is that style of rider. He doesn't look it when you see him here to be a rider who could do a very short prologue in Paris-Nice. I think it was around 2.5 kilometers. Another crash here.
Oh, you're gonna have to watch them out here. Oh, that was nasty, clipping the side of the pavement there. Oh. I think the Euskaltel rider falling very... Oh, it's Ladagnu. This is Ladagnu. Mathieu Ladagnu, one of my outside favourites. Ladagnu's in all sorts of pain there. Well, wrong place in the peloton. Down somewhere near the back for Mathieu Ladagnu. And the two of them catching that curb. Well, that's a big blow literally for Mathieu Ladagnu. Sean, he's going to be in a lot of pain there. You just have to get up and get going again if you can.
Yes, well, hopefully not too much damage and you can get going. We could see Visconti there as well from the Mobistar team. He was also on the ground there. But, again, it's such a familiar thing. In Paris-Roubaix, you come off this section of cobblestones. There's possibly even, a lot of dust on the tyres as well. And we have seen that so many times in the past where, riders just slide out in the corners for no reason whatsoever. And it looked like that was the situation as well, that somebody maybe slided or possibly somebody just touched the curb. But if you're close or if you're just behind those riders, well, then it's very difficult to abide it.
Yeah, I think possibly grounded a pedal going out onto that, because there's a two-stepped little curbstone there. The curb and then the flower bed just raised a little bit, and maybe he just clipped a pedal there. Not good for Mathieu Ladagnu, for Visconti. I didn't quite catch who the Euskaltel rider was, and I wouldn't be at all surprised if it was Tamaridis, to be honest, because he was fighting to stay somewhere up with the peloton. Sector 12, all sheet. This is a crucial section here. Have to be on their guard here. It's a very rough section, all sheet. It's only 1.7 in length compared to some of the others, but it's a rough old section. We used this, I think, in the Tour de France. Michael Schär just showing, look, don't grab the bars hard. He's got his hands nice and relaxed, wrists nice and relaxed, letting their belts, letting your arms and your legs be the shock absorbers there. Everybody across the front of the road, a whole mixture of teams here, Sean, now, and they look like they're trying to tee themselves up for this next section. All a little bit nervous.
Yes, looks a bit nervous in the front there. We can see it looked like Bernie Eisel. We can see Fletcher there in the front, and as you said, David, this section, it's also not a long one, but it's a difficult one as well. Some of the cobble sections are very, very difficult, and everybody getting a little bit more nervous here. And I think, you know, we're coming to the point now, 58 kilometres to the finish. Possibly, you know, they're wondering what they can do here, because with the group at the moment, our men out front only over a minute and an advantage. It's possible that, you know, they're thinking of doing something here. And the cobble sections, that's where you have to go in the attack, because that's where you can pull out an advantage. On the tarmac macadam sections, there is a difficulty, you know, pulling a nice advantage out there. So, but there's certainly a little bit of more nervousness on the front of the bunch at the moment.
Michael Schauer almost with them here. Look, here we go. Michael Schauer is going to make it a trio at the front here. It wasn't far off this point, Sean, last year that we saw Tom Bonen just motor away from everybody.
Well, I think as we're coming to this the point where if somebody's in real good shape, they can do that. Cancellara, for example, he's done it before. You know, around the 50 kilometres to go, he can do that. With the advantage for the, you know, the two out front, and they have been out there for a long time. Stigmans and Heyman, you know, they are going to pay for the efforts. Scar, of course, is coming across now, a fresher man, so he will be the one I think will, you know, push it on that bit more. But again, a three-man group out front, it's still, you know, a big ask for any of them to go anywhere near the finish. I think, you know, it's going to be looks very, very high, very unlikely that they will make it into the final 20-25 kilometres. And if there's action back in the bunch from some of the big affairs, well, then that gap will come down real quick.
Damien Goudin. He's a big lad, isn't he? Damien Goudin. There we are on his cyclocross machine here. Colnago cyclocross machine. I don't know what size frame it is. Must be a 60, I would imagine, or something similar. 59. Not the most graceful of riders. Who cares? As long as it works. That hurts his hand trying to grab that bottle. Gets another one. Doesn't want to slow down. Can see the advantage of pushing on here. He's a good old bet, this one, for getting a fair old way if he can. He's a super strong rider. Some riders just are better than others. Here's O'Grady. And we saw him at the front, now we see him at the back, Sean.
Yes, and we could see when he was getting in difficulty out front, it was pretty sure that he was starting to suffer. And I think we see the answer here, that when he's not here to keep in contact with this group, it means that he's pretty much at the end of his day.
Edvald Boasson-Hagen pushing the pace along in the front there. This is an interesting move. Boasson-Hagen in the champions jersey of Norway here. And is that Van Avermaet just behind? Difficult to tell. Looks a bit like him. And this will force a little bit of reaction. Johan von Summeren, well, the pace goes out of it again, but once again, Stannard right up there in the British champions jersey as well for Sky. Fletcher for Vacan Soleil in here too, sitting alongside Stannard. Very interesting now. Everybody's a bit nervous. Damien Goudin continues to try and bridge the gap across. You can see the cyclocross set up there with the little levers on the middle of the bars. William Bonnet in this group here, trying to get away and across. Matti Breschel seems to be in this, and Ian Stannard is at the back. This is a great move by Stannard. And is that Elmiger? Yep. Martin Elmiger, just as I said, is at Elmiger. Sean points to Elmiger, the former Swiss champion, riding for I Am Cycling, a very good rider. There we are. Granieri is the Astana rider. So Stannard, Bonnet, Granieri, Breschel and Elmiger. That's a smart move. Oh, Cancellara should be a little worried about some of those riders in there, I think. With 54 kilometers to go, Radio Shack will be whipped to the front if they have riders available to bring this one back. It's not very far. But even so, in a race like Paris-Roubaix, Sean, it's odd, isn't it? That's often the gap doesn't look as though it's very far, but it just grows out little by little by little. They don't tend to go away very fast, but they do just tend to pull out.
Yes, well, that is as you get more and more into the race, towards the end, you know, the little gap of a couple of 100 metres, and I think we see a perfect picture of that last week in the Tour of Flanders when Cancellara went away. We had the two riders chasing, and then we had a group behind, and it looked like they were going to just swallow up the two chasers very, very quickly, but they never managed to do it. And you know, that 10-15 seconds advantage when everybody is really running on empty, it takes a long time, if ever, to close it down. That was the case last week, and when you're on the cobbled sections, you can see the guy out in front of you, or the group out in front of you. It looks like that they're no distance away, but just to bridge that gap as you get more into the final, more into the end of the race, well, it gets that much more difficult.
So quite a different race at the moment from last year. No Tom Bonen here, and Bonen rode off at this point. Martin Elmiger and Ian Stannard. William Bonnet, Guarnieri, and so forth will be back in the peloton again. Stegmans in the middle, running down the section of cobblestones here. Damian Gaudin can see them up ahead. This is a fine ride by Gaudin. He's trying to make that gap. 15 seconds he has to bridge over to these three men. Well, he's in very, very good form, Sean. He certainly has been. For this sort of event, he's a big, strong lad, isn't he?
Yes, he's powerful, and when you see him on the bike, you know, the style, it doesn't look good, but he can, you know, get the power into the machine there and really push along, because, you know, to close down on the three out in front, he's doing a great ride there to bridge that gap. And as we've just talked about, when, you know, the gap is 30 seconds plus, it's a big ask for anybody to close down on three out in front. And of course, with Scar joining up with the two out front, he's pushing it on, but Gaudin is making, you know, great inroads here, and look like he's going to close down and get into this three-man group.
Still not a big gap, is it, though? 33 seconds between the chasing, well, between the three leading men, Gert Stegmans, Michael Schaar and Matthew Heyman, and the main peloton. 33 seconds, and still, although we haven't seen much of it for the moment, as we watch Damian Gaudin churning away like some great enormous machine. Gosh, he makes Ian Stannard look like he's got massive souplesse, this man. 33 seconds. Radio Shack are doing a good job on the front. They've got one man there, but there's other teams contributing here, Sean, including Sky and Astana and Argos Shimano. It's not all just down to Radio Shack here, but even so, still good for Fabian Cancellara.
Yes, I think it's a good situation for Cancellara at the moment, you know, with the race coming to not far off, outside the 50 kilometers to go mark, and, you know, the group out front, nothing to worry about, certainly no panic at all. And you know, we could see Cancellara attack at any time from here on. He could decide, you know, just up the pace, pull some riders off the front of the peloton with him, and ride away, because when he turns on the power on the cobble sections, there's not many riders in the group. But again, you have to be careful, because if you attack too early, well, then you can pay the price.
And here he is, look at him, right comes to the head of affairs now. Now he's turning on the gas, as we said. Oh, this is stringing people out. Cancellara himself is now putting the pressure on. There's no good, and look at the gap he's caused behind. 30-odd riders have managed to come with it. Bernard Eisel on the right-hand side, our producer Vincent Renaud's choice for the outside winner today. Sylvain Chavanel comes straight up the middle of the crown of the road, not wanting to let Fabian Cancellara get his own way here. Thor Hushovd right at the front of affairs in the red and black of BMC. Brilliant to get.
Allez, come on! Turbo! Allez, Damien, allez!
There's everywhere here. We can see, you know, gaps of 2 and 3 bike lengths between the riders, and Cancellara, you know, just looking so comfortable at the moment. He's just up the pace, but certainly not.
Allez, Fabian! Allez, Boisson, allez!
Fabian Cancellara just winds on the power. Here he is. Looks over his shoulder, doesn't look to be bothered in the slightest. I don't think he's put on the full gas yet, with Chavanel just behind him. Sinkeldam is the rider for Argos Shimano. He's going well, Sinkeldam. Ramon Sinkeldam. If you ever wanted a name to conjure with, moves across right in front of Bernard Eisel, though. You think he's looking around going, what the hell am I doing up here? And there he goes. Decided that that's the best thing to do. Cancellara on the left-hand side of the shot. I think Turgot has managed to keep in this little group as well. Lars Bohm is right behind Cancellara as well. As Sinkeldam moves forward a little bit. Sylvain Chavanel thinking maybe this is the man to go with at the moment. Godin has almost made the gap with these two. Possibly a tactic, Sean. Godin get up there. Is there anything left in the tank to help Turgot if he arrives?
Well, whatever's left in the tank, it's going to be a really difficult one, because the advantage, you know, down to 13 seconds at the moment. The up in pace back in the main group of Cancellara and the other riders who are taking it up, that is really, you know, causing difficulty, really killing off the breakaway. And it will be interesting now to see, will they continue on? There's going to be more and more of attacks, but we can see that group, you know, like it's the numbers have, you know, came down a lot in that group of Cancellara. They've, you know, blown so many riders out the rear, but this is the time now where we'll see the attacks once again. There's other riders going to say, well, this is the opportunity for us to try and, you know, get ahead, form a breakaway. Just under 50 kilometers to go. It's the time to start thinking of that, and we can see riders wanting to push on here.
Hushoft, Thor Hushoft, wanting to make the effort to get away with Jan van Summeren, former winner here 2 years ago, in his wheel at the moment. Michael Schaar is up the road. Godin has joined this trio to make it a quartet. Good news then for Thor Hushoft if he gets there. Sinkeldam is taken back. And van Summeren going well. Hushoft is not going well now. Hushoft is slipped back into this group, maybe thinking it's a little bit early, Sean. Possibly. It seems to have gone back very quickly.
Yes, and sometimes, you know, the experienced riders, they, you know, put in an attack, a very short-lived one, and knock off because you know, they feel that it's much too far from the finish. And Cancellara as well, you know, to open the pace there for a moment. It's just to make some of the other riders nervous, and when you do that, you know, the other riders will take it up and keep on pushing. And if you can cause that nervousness within the leading group and up front of the leading group, well then you know, that all helps, because they actually do the job for you, because they keep the pace very high by attacking off the front of the group.
That's a good person to have at the front as well, is Nicky Terpstra. Terpstra now just winding the pace on with the little terrier Luca Paolini on his wheel here. It was my outside favourite for Flanders. If you can go well at Flanders, you can go well here, who knows. Jan van Summeren's the other man. Now round the outside comes one of the Blanco riders. The shorter riders. I don't think it's Lars Bohm, but you never know. Paolini and Terpstra meet up. This is getting a little bit hectic here. The action coming thick and fast now. And leading riders are going to be brought back by that big group. Somebody saying, do you think Cancellara has attacked a little early on Twitter? Well, he's not really attacked. He's just trying to make the selection. He's trying to whittle down people at the moment. .48 kilometers still remaining. Onto the Mons au Pévelay, section 10. That just tells you there's another 10 sections of this cobblestone still to go. And we're not even to the real selection point. Yes, I think the Carrefour de l'Arbre is probably going to be the final selection point, but you never know in a race like this. We saw last year with Bonen just riding away. Good move by Terpstra. But nobody's really getting away at the moment, Sean, but it is really hectic.
Yes, the pace is really strong here at the moment, and you know, there's a lot of riders you know, pushing off the front of the group, and once you can keep the pace high, that will suit Cancellara, for example. If that is the case, well, he will just you know, sit back there, leave it happen, leave the race go on as long as possible. So you know, for some riders, for the big favourites, it is a good situation, and if there's a lot of rivalry between the teams, where there are, as we can see, Boom here just pushing on the, you know, it's an easy one to control, because you know there's riders and teams chasing each other, and that just keeps the pace real high at the front end of the bunch, and that's what the likes of Cancellara and the other big favourites they need at the moment. It's when it slows down a lot and everybody starts to look at each other and the attack, then that come back and there's another attack. That's when it's dangerous. You can get a group of 10, even 15 riders getting away. They cannot afford to do. Someone has a puncture.
Juan Antonio Flescher on the right-hand side of the road. Arvo, the Cat 999 saying, spokesman, have you picked everyone for the win today? No, we're just telling you how open the field is. You try picking a winner if it isn't Cancellara. Fletcher, followed by Lars Bohm. We spoke to Juan Antonio Flescher yesterday, and he seems quite bullish, I have to say. Looked pretty good in Flanders. Maybe this is his year, Sean. He's been second, he's been third, he's been, I think, fourth as well. He's just always been outside.
Yes, and you know, there has been times when he's very impressive, looking real strong, but just never managed to win this one. And the form he's got at the moment, I think, is a form that he's capable of winning this Paris-Roubaix. But again, it comes down to, tactically, you have to try and form a group and get away, because I think if they wait with Cancellara, it's going to be difficult to match him in the final. But certainly Fletcher's the one who could follow Cancellara. He has done it before, and I think the form he's in at the moment, capable of doing it.
Still a very big group here. Riders beginning to suffer terribly here out the back. That Sebastianino, I think, was beginning to suffer very good in Flanders last week. Terpstra looks strong, responding to things. I think it's Van Keulsbroek, isn't it?
I think it's Stein.
It's Stein Vandenberg. It's who? Yeah, this is Sebastianino struggling.
caméra, il y a une caméra là-bas. Il nous a eu. Ah, il m'a bien pris, ouais. J'ai mauvais bras. Ils arrivent, ils sont là-bas, derrière. Il y a des caméras comme ça, on va tomber sur les caméras photo maintenant. Attends, là, là. Ça. Non. Allez!
Cancellara group here. Two men from Omega Pharma Quick Step in this front group. Well, they can continue pulling the pace along with Niki Terpstra, but the heart must sink in their mouths when you see Fabian Cancellara here, because he's made that, just had to wind it up and got across to the group there. Here's the chasing group, two men from Europcar, and I see Sylvain Chavanel in that group as well, although he's waiting for the cart for some reason, I think. Not quite sure why. Martin Leinens of Blanco looks over his shoulder. Nice to see the I Am Cycling jersey of Heinrich Hausler in here. Luca Paolini also in the group, I thought. Alexander Kristoff, my big outsider for a win in here. I don't see Björn Lerkermans though, Sean. That's a shame. If anybody's putting money on Lerkermans, like me. Don't see him yet anyway. It's quite a big group then. Langeveld looking cool and calm. What will be the tactic here? Just roll along a little bit. They don't want too many people coming back. They've got enough gap. I think they realize that the men behind are just dropped off a little bit. There's a Sky jersey in here as well. Is that Eisel? Difficult to tell. Two from Blanco. One from Katusha, right at the back. That's Alexander Kristoff. Two from Europe Car, probably Godin and Turgot. As inside the top 10 section of cobbles they come, with Vandenberg pushing on. Now stringing them out a little more. This is another selection process as Langeveld goes with him. It's a case of last man standing here, Sean, at the moment. It's going to be, I think.
Yes, well, the tactic from Omega Car, quick step. I'm surprised that they're pushing so much with Cancellara in this group. We did see Sylvain Chavanel, calling for the team car at the rear. So surprising to see them continuing on with their effort, that they did knock it off for a moment. Maybe Chavanel is not feeling good, and they have decided, to push on with Tepster out front. But it's a surprising tactic. At the moment they're starting to look, and maybe the news is only coming through.
Bernhard Eisel is the Sky Rider here, freed from the responsibilities of looking after anybody, with clearly Edvald Bosenhagen not on the form. Lars Bohm is in this group as well. Oh, and Turgot looks as though, I think if that is Turgot, he needs a rear wheel. Well, thankfully the pressure has eased off a little bit. Well, had eased off. Oh dear, oh dear. And Sebastian Turgot needing a rear wheel. Oh, this is disaster for Turgot.
Jean-René Bernadotte.
Yes.
And was he on the roadside, or it had to be on the roadside?
Had to be on the roadside.
Yes. That's the reason he stopped real quickly, because he just came to that point and he sees Jean-René Bernadotte, the general manager of the team, and stopped suddenly and just made a wheel change.
Stijn Vandenberg pushing on. I'll tell you what, Sebastian Langeveld's looking good, as is Bernhard Eisel here. Lars Bohm is in this group. We'll give you a full rundown in just a minute. Martin Weinens is now winding up the pace here, with Lars Bohm, his teammate, at the back. Lars Bohm, I tipped for a win last year, but didn't manage to get there. He was blown away by the power of Tom Bonen, as Damian Godin is looking behind him. Where is my teammate Sebastian Turgot? Can't afford to hang around, though. If a couple of these riders really put the hammer down, won't make any difference where Turgot is. Godin's just going to have to keep with this group and go for it.
Yes, well, I think Godin is in the position where you just have to follow the attacks and just stay up front, and hopefully his teammate will get back in. There's not a lot you can do at the moment, and you just continue on where you are and try and stay in the front of this group, and see what happens a little bit further down the road.
This is Cancellara. Juan Antonio Fleischer in this group. 66 there is Luca Paolini. Weinens and Langeveld pushing on here, with another couple of riders getting across. It's Stijn Vandenberg is one of them. 124 there is Björn Leukemans. There is Leukemans. This is the chasing group, with Hausler, Leukemans, now Turgot is in this group. There is Kristoff. Oh, great riding from the Bretagne Schüler rider. Turiel, Aloy Turiel, the track rider. Sylvain Chavanel, he looked like he had a problem earlier, had his hand up for the car, takes a new bike. 39 kilometers to go, and Chavanel makes a bike change. Oh man, it's everybody for himself here. C'est la guerre. Sylvain Chavanel right up behind that bike, using that bike for every inch he possibly can to give him that tow. The old bottle comes out as Stijn Vandenberg pushes on at the front. This is the head of the race at Pont Thibault. Pont Thibault. We still have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 sections to go. 3-star section, just under a kilometre left for Stein Vandenberg, and that dust is absolutely devastating for some of the riders behind. It must be really difficult, Sean, to keep any sort of contact with what's actually going on.
Yes, well, it is.
On retrouve notamment Gert Stegmans, le coureur de Vega Pharma, Mathieu Ayman, l'Australien du Deep Sky.
And to see exactly what is happening, although at this moment, we haven't that many riders in the front, and you can recognize the riders pretty quickly earlier on the race, when there is a group of 50-60 riders, when there's a lot of attacking off the front, then and to keep control who's going out in front, it's a bit more difficult. But here, the riders, they have the experience of that, and of course, they should be able to see who's going out off the front of the group.
Here now is Zdeněk Štýbar is in this group as well, next to Fabian Cancellara, who doesn't look like he's riding super hard here. It doesn't look to me, Sean, as though Cancellara looks particularly happy.
Well, at the moment, he's in a group where they're going to start attacking him, and of course, if he starts to react and follow everybody immediately, well, then they will just keep on doing it. And all the riders in this leading group, before we had the 2 riders getting out in front, they will continue on to do that. So he's maybe bluffing at the moment, but with 2 out front, I think Cancellara, if he is anything like he was last week in the forum, well, then when he goes in the attack a little bit later, because there's still 37 kilometers to go, there is sufficient amount of time. I feel that he will put in a big attack a bit further on, so he can afford to allow 2 or 3 riders pull an advantage of 35-40 seconds, even a minute, and he can close down that very quickly if he's in the shape he was last weekend.
Extraordinary that he can do. Look, he's just turning over a bigger gear here. Flescher looks over his shoulder to see.
Allez les gars!
Together, he's allowed the other riders to come back up to him, just knocked off the gas a little bit. Luca Paolini, I think. I don't think he can go any faster, but he knows he can get a better advantage by working with other people. This is the group with Fabian Cancellara, Paolini at the back. Lars Bohm is in this group. Eisel trying to get it working. Fletcher, Terpstra. Welcome back. You'll be pleased to know there are no more breaks until after the arrival in the velodrome here in Roubaix. 15 seconds is the gap between Stein Vandenberg, Damian Goudin, Sepp van Mark and Sebastian Langeveld, and the 2 riders who are now chasing, Greg van Avermaet and Juan Antonio Flescher. Filippo Pozzato's in this group, along with Heinrich Hausler. This must be the 1, 2, 3, 4th group on the road now. Sebastian. Who else is in this group of note? Steve Chanel, the cyclocross rider. This is the front group on the road. Sepp van Mark is the Blanco rider in the blue and white and black vertical stripes. That is Sebastian Langeveld of Orica Green Edge, that lime green colouring on the jersey, looking very strong. I reckon he looks the strongest in this group. Damian Goudin in the emerald green of Europcar, pedalling as per usual like a bag of spanners, but super strong. And behind him, just coming through to do his turn on the front, the enormous, colossal figure of Stan Vandenberg of the Omega Pharma Quick Step squad. There he is. 2 men are now chasing at 14 seconds. And they are Juan Antonio Fletcher there in the blue and yellow and white of the colours of Cancellara and Greg Van Avermaet. And Van Avermaet is not really waiting. Look at this. Fabian Cancellara is off the pace here, and he's back with the car. Fabian Cancellara getting a little tiny bit of a handling from the car and not in great shape. I think it's over. I don't think he's into it. I don't know what you think, Sean, but that spells to me that he's not comfortable.
No.
Ah oui, il y a marqué son fleur.
Quand on partait de bon matin, quand on partait sur les chemins, à la bicyclette, nous étions quelques bons copains. Il y avait Fernand, il y avait Firmin, il y avait Francis et Sébastien.
I think real quickly if he is in difficulty, because he has to react now in the next number of kilometres. If he doesn't, well then the race will be getting it too far away from him.
It's very unlike Fabian Cancellara to let riders ride away. Really very unlike him. He must be either supremely confident that he can shut down that gap or in trouble. Sepp van Mark. And as we were saying, just on the way into the finish line today, before we took our position here in the commentary booth, or the tribune here, Sepp van Mark, possibly not the absolutely most naturally talented rider in the world, but very clever.
Yes, I think he's proven that in a very short time, because he hasn't been, in the pro ranks for a long time, and I think.
Devant Paulette, faut dire qu'elle y mettait le cœur, c'était la fille du facteur, la bicyclette. Et depuis qu'elle avait 8 ans, elle avait fait dans le suivant tous les chemins environnants, la bicyclette. Quand on approchait la rivière, on déposait dans les fougères nos bicyclettes. Puis on se roulait dans les champs, faisant naître un bouquet.
He is able to read the races quite well, and that is very important, because to get into the break at a good moment, and this one is certainly a real good one. Certainly at the point in the race to get into a 4-man breakaway, it was the perfect timing. Earlier on you could say, well, some of them look pretty good, but that bit more further out in the race, so it's looking good. It's a good position to be in with 4 leaders with just 32.8 kilometres to the finish.
Well, maybe Cancellara was just supremely confident, because look, he gets on the front now, starting to try and string this one out there, but he's pulling Bernard Eisel, Nicky Terpstra and Lars Bohm with him. This is the next group on the road chasing back with Sylvain Chavanel. This will be group 4, I think, on the road. Sylvain Chavanel, Sebastian. 35 seconds between the group of Chavanel there and the Cancellara group a little bit further up the road. There are essentially 4 groups now on the road we need to worry about. In the black and blue and white stripes of the very classy Blanco kit. Just adjusting those brakes, taking them off a little bit. doesn't need to do anything with them. Number 66 is Luca Paolini. This is the next group back. 37 is Greg van Avermaet. And Juan Antonio Flecha is in this group as well. And interestingly, Zdeněk Štýbar here, former world cyclocross champion. World cyclocross champion in this group. Cancellara's group still doing the pulling along, but there's a substantial gaps between some of these now, Sean.
Yes, I think the group of Cancellara is 20 seconds. It's not out of control at the moment, but Cancellara, it'll be interesting to see as we get to the next section of cobbles. I think if Cancellara is feeling good, well then that's the time when we should see him just turning up the pace and really causing difficulty for the rest of the riders with him. And with the position out front, he has to do it at this moment, and the next section of cobbles, I think we will see what sort of shape Cancellara's in. If he's just playing bluff a little bit, or is he starting to feel a little bit under his best?
It's a very unusual situation for him. You don't often see him go back, let the gap go, and then eat it up. So as I said, after that spot of him going back to the team car and looking as though he was easing up, it's either he's very confident or he's just not feeling very good. One of the two. Sebastian Langeveld looking very confident, very calm, but maybe he's doing a little bit too much work too early, with Stijn Vandenberg coming up behind him. There's Sepp van Mark, Damian Goudan, Juan Antonio Flecha arrives, Luca Paolini arrives. God, you just can't get rid of little Luca Paolini, can you? He's had such a long career. And Greg van Avermaet of BMC. Paolini at the back end, number 66. And now they're looking. Now they're talking to each other. As Lars Bohm is having trouble. And there goes Fabian Cancellara. Oh, well, question answer then maybe, Sean. A bit of poker being played.
Yes, I think you have to be real careful with Cancellara, because he plays a bit of bluff, and if he gets you on a section of cobbles and he is feeling good, well then it's so difficult to follow him inside the final 30 kilometers if he does go in the attack. And I think we're seeing the answer. It's the race is not over for Cancellara yet. He is not as suffering or not in big trouble as it looked like it could have been the case for a moment.
Well, that's the excitement of Paris-Roubaix. Oh, be careful. Yep, motorcycle pulling out the way, giving him a little bit of a tow. Not that he needs one. He's coming back to this group now. Fabian Cancellara, winner in Flanders so easily last week. He's having to work hard to get there, but he will get there, and they've eased up ahead. Still 30 kilometers to go. What will Fabian Cancellara do? I tell you, their hearts will sink in their boots or their cycling shoes when they see this man coming up, as they thought they distanced him a little bit. This is the great excitement of Paris-Roubaix and cycling in general. You never know what's going to happen. Sepp van Mark and Stijn Vandenberg deciding they're going to push on here. They've got the word that the Fabs is coming up here. Makes the gap. Fabian Cancellara, what can you say about this man? Oh, that's put the hurry up for Zdeněk Štýbar. That's a very good race for him so far, Štýbar.
Yes, he's riding a great race here, because coming from cyclocross, he's concentrated on the road in the past, and to be up here in this company in a Paris-Roubaix, it's a real strong ride by Štýbar. And cyclocross, a 2-hour event, and this one, it's a big step up, but he's managed it quite well and done it very quickly.
Stijn Vandenberg and Sepp van Mark have 10 seconds now over the group that's now just been joined by Fabian Cancellara. This is a smart move by these two. Stijn Vandenberg's looked strong all day, and he's got Stibar in the group behind. But Sepp van Mark has seen that, well, you know, I can't compete with a rider like Fabian Cancellara. I'm just going to go while I can, hoping this group will ease up a little bit, thinking, well, we're not going to do any work now and take Cancellara any further forward.
Well, I think they would be aware that Cancellara was coming up, and a good tactic to just get out of that group, get that little bit of an advantage.
Now normality is resumed. Fabian Cancellara comes back into contention here. Sebastian Lagerfeld of Orica Green Edge in the blue and yellow and white. Right at the front here now in the black and red is Greg van Avermaet. Looking down to getting a gel down his throat is the powerful rider in emerald green of Damian Goudan, as Nicky Terpstra, the Netherlands national champion, comes across as well. That's a fine ride by Terpstra. Remember, Terpstra was pretty much up there last year as well, and has been, when he's on form, he's a very difficult rider to hold if he can ride away. These two are going well. Van Mark's doing a little less perhaps than Stijn Vandenberg. We don't know. We haven't seen him too much on camera. He's coming through to do his Well, he knows he can't stick with Fabian Cancellara in the long run, so he's going to have a go now.
Yes, but it's going to be difficult for him to pull, you know, the advantage out here, and I think the effort you have to make here on your own, you just pay for that a bit later. For everybody here in the group of Cancellara, I think you should just line up, get in his wheel and try and follow him, because when we come to the next section of cobbles, you know, which is at 27 kilometres, so we're coming to that now. 1.3 kilometres. Will Cancellara go here, or will he just, you know, play on for a bit longer and wait, because, you know, 26.8 kilometres to finish.
Section of cobblestones will be Bourgel, Wannerheim, which these two are now on. There we are, Bourgel, 1,200 meters of cobblestones, and Sepp van Mark he's playing a crafty game here. Good ride by these two. 26 kilometers to go and 30 seconds the gap back to Cancellara. An extra 30 seconds back to the group of Chavanel. It's not over by any means, even for that third group on the road, if this group continue to sort of just wheel along here.
Yes, and it all depends on what the group of Chavanel, you know, what they're feeling, how they're feeling. I think there's a lot of riders, you know, starting to feel tired at this moment, because otherwise they'd not be back there in that group. And as we talked about earlier, I think a 30-second advantage on this one. If you're feeling good, you can close it down very quickly, but if you're starting to suffer big time, well, then the gap will only go out, and I don't think it will really slow down that much. As we can see, Fletcher's pushing on here on this section, and I think the group of Chavanel will just lose time from here on in.
Is that the right thing to be doing, pushing on at this point? Sean, for Juan Antonio Flecha. We've seen him do this in the past. He's done this before with Sky. He's done it with Rabobank. He pushes on at about this point and just gets swamped towards the end.
Yes, and when you have a rider like Cancellara, for example, then you have to be real careful. You know, the effort you put in.
Come on! Come on! Come on, Fabian! Come on!
In the attack, when you do your big effort, very difficult to match him and to follow him. So you have to be careful. But again, you know, as we just talked about the group behind, you don't want that group joining up, because then, you know, the
Pozzanto's in that group as well, as Flecha continues to pull this second group on the road along with Zdeněk Štýbar, Niki Terpstra, Godin, Cancellara, Van Avermaet, Luca Paolini, Langeveld still in that group, and Stan Vandenberg looks across to Van Mark as he comes and does a turn on the front. I think possibly doing maybe one shorter turns, but Flecha now increasing the pressure here. He's been in very good form. He was good last weekend in Flanders, coming back from the last 30 kilometers. And Godin's just hanging out. Paolini with a puncture. Luca Paolini with a puncture. And this is this is going to be very, very, very interesting as they come towards the last section. Still 7 sections of cobblestones to go, and nothing looks to be hugely inspired within this group of Cancellara. And can you blame him, as Damien Godin decides that if everybody else is going to just hang around, I've only got one option, and that's to go hard, as Niki Terpstra thinks that's a good idea to go too. I think they're more worried about Terpstra than they would be about Godin. Langeveld looks strong in that group to me, though, Sean. He just sits there and he's just pedaling and responds to things quite well.
Yes,
certainly podium material by the look of it there.
Yes, well, he's looking comfortable at the moment, but again, some riders, they can look, you know, pretty comfortable, and they can be still hiding, you know, the sufferings behind that.
Yes.
So I think you know, the cobble sections to come, and if there's a real strong attack from the likes of Cancellara, well, then we will see very quickly the ones in this group, Terpstra, Cancellara. We will see who is capable of doing it, and the question is Cancellara capable of doing it? You know, he's following us here, riding a little bit on the front. Is he not in the shape that we were expecting to be in today, or the shape he had last week in the Tour of Flanders? Because this gap, is 35 seconds, but again, 23.8 kilometers to finish. There's a long road to the Velodrome and Roubaix, and there's a lot of cobblestone sections all the time. And if Cancellara is in the form which he has shown in the past, well, then he can certainly close this gap down. But the big question is, what way is he feeling?
Over the section of cobblestones known as Champagne de Pévelay, and the next big and probably the crucial section here coming up. Carrefour de l'Arbre, with 17.5 kilometers to go. They'll finish going over this short section of Champagne de Pévelay, and then into Carrefour de l'Arbre as Fabian Cancellara gets to the front and turns on the gas, with Štýbar responding. Good riding by the Czech to stick on the wheel of Fabian Cancellara, but look at everybody else, Sean. Bang, there they go. Greg Van Avermaet chasing for all he's worth to get on the wheel of Zdeněk Štýbar. What a magnificent bit of poker then by Fabian Cancellara. It's not over till it's over, though. He's made the attack, but has he got it in the tank? He may still have the power, but does he have everything else? Terpstra not able to respond. Langevel coming past. Stybar is stuck with him. Great riding by the Czech. Now 2 lead riders, Sepp van Mark and Stijn Vandenberg. And behind them now, the 2 riders, Fabian Cancellara and Zdeněk Stybar, and Greg van Avermaet can't stay with that pace at all. Well, Stybar must be having kittens now, thinking, I can't believe that. I can't believe I've stayed there.
Well, it must be an experience for Stybar because, road racing, he hasn't come from a road racing background. And to be up here in this Paris-Roubaix in the final and be able to match Cancellara, that is a big performance. And he's going to sit here now. He's not going to, move off the wheel of Cancellara because he have Vandenberg up the road. And it's an interesting one, Omega Pharma Quick Step will have 2 riders out in front. But again, Cancellara, when he will start, to up the pace again on the next section of cobbles, well, it's going to be difficult to follow. But Stybar, looking very, very impressive at the moment, because when you see Van Avermaet not able to follow, that tells you how fast and how much he pushed on the pace there.
Let's not forget, bike handling skills may be exemplary for Stybar, the Czech rider, but cyclocross races are 1 hour and 1 lap, or a little bit longer. They're not 202 kilometers of Paris-Roubaix, so impressive. And interestingly, this is interesting because there seems to be a little bit of lack of pace now from Stijn Vandenberg. He'll have known that Stybar is with Cancellara now, and Sepp van Mark comes to the front, but he seems to be a little bit less aggressive here, Sean.
Well, maybe he's starting to feel also that the tiredness starting to, pay and feeling that. And you also have to make the calculation, I suppose, still over 20 kilometers to go, still a number of sections of cobbles to be negotiated. They know the route so well. All the riders have been out here to look at the cobble sections in the last number of days. And, the difficult ones to come, they'll be saying, well, I better knock it off a little bit here just to have a bit more for the next section of cobblestones ahead.
Cancellara, 13 seconds to make up on the riders in front, and Stybar of Omega Pharma Quick Step able to just sit there in his wheel at the moment. You never know how much will Cancellara leave on the road. He opened up a whopping, nearly 1 minute and 15 seconds in the last 13k of the Tour of Flanders, but that's a different race. It's a different race completely. Always, every race is different, of course, but there's no hills here to contend with. Been hiding very well, though. Terrific bit of poker by Cancellara, going back to the car, letting the gap go out, and he's just hopped from one to another, Sean. He's been superb.
Yes, it's amazing how guys can do that. You can, so cool, allowing groups to ride up the road and not panic at all, and play the poker so well. Calling the car, talking with the team car. I think a lot of the riders were starting to think, well, is Cancellara not on a good day? Is he starting to suffer? That would have been certainly going through a lot of the riders that are up there in that group with him. But to keep that coolness, that is where the big champions come out, and they can do that at a real important point of the race.
Cancellara reaches for gel, and Stijn Vandenberg, I think, definitely has knocked the pace off. You can see that Stybar is behind. Question is, can they, between them, and I think Sepp van Mark's going to be the smart one and benefit by. This is Champin de Pévelet, and will Cancellara? Well, Cancellara's made the gap here. I'm sure that he's saving the attack, Sean, for Carrefour de l'Arbre, which will come at 17.5 kilometers, because Stijn van den Berg's decided, look, put the hammer down again here and just keep it strung out so Cancellara can't attack us.
Yes, well, I think when you come to a section of cobblestones, you know, the rider on the front will automatically keep.
Ça y est, c'est fini? Non, il y en a plus que ça. En haute définition, ça fait des belles images. Il y en a encore ou pas alors? Ouais.
Limite, juste limite. Florian, fais gaffe.
With these riders, he's going to try and ride everybody up his wheel. That way, he's sure if to come into Roubaix on your own, it's the way to do it. And Cancellara, of course, in the sprints, Stuybar, for example, he's quite a good sprinter. So it will be interesting to see the riders up here in front with Cancellara. Can anybody follow him when he does make this big attack? And there's certainly going to be one of them. And I think Carrefour de l'Arbre is a long section, and it's a perfect opportunity for a rider like Cancellara to do it.
Looking comfortable again now as Van Mark leads them out of section 5, Champin de Pévelet. Chain, we always get this shot at some point, the chain bouncing around all over the shot. And Nick Stuybar is definitely sort of bouncing around like a pea on a drum at the moment, but won't bother him too much. Cancellara looking super solid. Sepp Van Mark at the front of this quartet of riders. Here are the chasing group with Sylvain Chavanel, Lars Bohm riding, another great cyclocross rider and former world champion, riding on the left-hand side of your shot in the Blanco kit, the white helmet, just passing by the hot air balloon in your background there. Still churning away in this chasing group is Damien Gaudin. Fine ride by him. And Antonio Fletcher also in the chasing group. They are at 38 seconds back now. 108 back for the group of Chavanel, Eisel, Lars Bohm, Winans is in there, Christophe, Luca Paolini is back in there having had a puncture, and Steve Chenel. Four riders, Stuybar, Van den Berg, Cancellara and Van Mark take a little bit of time to get together. And Gigel puts on the pace a little bit. Keep the pressure on the man from Switzerland.
Percent!
Ah putain, la poussière.
Comfortable, but not there now.
No, and you know, some riders they look quite comfortable, but it's really when the pace is up big time, that's when you see they start to lose contact, and it looks like Lagerfeld is not feeling that good, because hanging on the rear end of that group, if he was in good shape, and I think anybody that was really feeling good would have tried to follow Cancellara, but it's easier said than done, and Stoiber was the only one had the power to do that.
Here we go, Coffre de l'Arbre. And Stijn van den Berg is now beginning to suffer a little bit. He's got about 2 bike lengths gap. Sepp van Mark keeps the pressure on, but Cancellara just waiting. Remember, the last significant cobbled section comes 8 kilometers from the end. There's a little tiny one at the end, but it's all been put in the middle of town almost. Sepp van Mark for Blanco. Oh! There's a fall. Who's the faller? Is that Van den Berg? Yes, Stijn van den Berg, as he hit it, I bet he hits a fan. Yes, he does, clips a fan. Oh! No, that is going to hurt. Ow, 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 ow. I hope his hips are okay there. That is very painful. Right. And a fan just standing out a little bit. So 4, we're now 3. Oh, that's huge shame for Stijn van den Berg, who is chasing very... most of the time. He's now riding on the centre of the cobbles with Fabian Cancellara on the right-hand side of your screen. He's still not managed to shed. Zdeněk Štýbar, the Czech rider. This is so hard, this section. I think it's this corner coming up, actually. And he just, the wheel slid away from him. Everybody around, that's good. And you can see why it's difficult. It's narrow, right? Everybody crowds in here. And there goes Cancellara. He sees the opportunity to put the hammer down. Get around Van Mark and go for it. Štýbar's not letting him go. Oh, Van Mark will be chewing the handlebars any second now. Well done, well responded, both of those men. To keep the pace going. Impressive by both the men who are with Cancellara here to remain with him.
Yes, and Štýbar just stuck to the wheel of Cancellara. We could see there when Cancellara just... and do that, stay in the wheel of Cancellara and try and follow. But Seb Mark is very impressive here. He's the one who's pushing on. It looked like Cancellara was really going to turn it on, but was that a little bit of a test? And now we hang a right here and then immediately left, and I think that is the section. If Cancellara has got it, touch another spectator.
Oh no! Come on, let's have a look what happens here.
Yep.
Oh! No, I think he get clipped in the.
No, I think a spectator just put his hand out and he touched up a style bar, and he did really well to hold upright.
Cyclocross chaining coming in here, and Zdeněk Štýbar's he's got to ride as hard as he possibly can now. Oh, this is. See him almost shaking his head as Cancellara continues on his way with Seb van Mark behind him, and Štýbar, who's used that back wheel of Cancellara as both shelter and something to aim at. Quacked by a spectator on the side of the road and zipping across the other side. This is absolutely awful for Zdeněk Štýbar, and he's losing ground hand over fist here now, Sean.
Yes, with Cancellara riding in the front, of course, we've seen as recent as last week, and it's going to be very difficult for Štýbar to get back here. I don't think he will make it, because we can see Cancellara is just after doing a pull now. Seb van Mark takes over here, so you know it's 2 against 1, and at this point it's highly unlikely that he will make it back to the 2 in front.
That is the most appalling luck from the
Paris-Roubaix.
It's absolutely, but from the one man who's sat on the wheel and been able to respond to Cancellara's upping in pace.
As you can see, it's a race where it's so much dangerous here. You try and ride on the side, the spectators are there, you know, standing out, and all you need is a spectator to look. And get on the edge, but unfortunately one of the spectators just put his hand out there and touched him, and it was amazing that he stayed upright.
Terrific save by Zdeněk Štýbar, but question is he
Allez Damien! Allez Damien!
At 39 seconds now, chasing Terpstra, Godin, Fletcher, Langeveld, Van Avermaet, and the next group down at 1:32. And there they are on the road. This is the Godin, Van Avermaet, Fletcher, Langeveld group. Oh, what?
Le Cummins quand même.
Luck for Zdeněk Štýbar. This is the next group down with Filippo Pozzato and Stein Vandenberg looking a little battered at the back here. Lars Bohm sitting ahead of Pozzato in the white helmet there. Alexander Kristoff in this group. And Luca Paolini, so 2 riders from Katusha sitting in this group. And they're a long way down now. And Thomas Chavanel also in here. Oh, who's this? Is this Štýbar? Oh, Not again. No. Oh, he's chasing so hard. And just keeping it together. Come on, Zadnik, come on. All we need is one friendly neutral service motorcycle to just slow up a little bit so he can get a lift. But I fear it's not going to be for the man who looked the most likely to be able to stick with this man, Cancellara, all the way.
I don't think there's no way back for Stybar at this moment. 21 seconds, against the two riders up front, and several marks still, continuing to ride on the front with Cancellara. We can see Stybar really, pushing the limits out there on that corner. Was, lucky once again that he did not run off road. Interesting now to see will Cancellara just, ride on to the finish. If it comes down to a sprint, Van Mark, he isn't a great sprinter. Against the Cancellara, I think he has a chance, but against the Stybar, if he came to the finish here on the velodrome, I think he would be a much bigger problem for Cancellara.
Yeah, I'm absolutely certain of that as well, Sean. Even puffing and blowing a little bit here, Fabian Cancellara, having fallen twice this week. Lots of questions about whether he had the ability, whether he had the form. We had the form, but just knocked off by injury. But, well, you know what? I hope the spectator at the side of the road watches this replay year after year and thinks what he did to Zadnik, Stybar.
Attention à toi. Allez, Brasson!
Hussel. Hier de standaard. Is dat hier standaard? Ja, standaard. Zie maar, ja. Nog afstellen. Kersen. Hier, dat is hier. Hier, Boos en Haan.
And I reckon thinking of that, third position on the podium, but again, he still has over 10 kilometers to go. The chasing group, if they have got any energy left, numbers are, very important at this moment. So he could have difficulty holding off that chasing group with Antonio Fletcher.
Stybar now 32 seconds, 20 seconds ahead of the Fletcher. Van Mark takes his turn on the front. Somebody writing in on Twitter saying that Stybar was hit in the face by somebody with a camera sticking it out, and that chucked him across the road. Question at the end saying barriers. It's a very difficult one, that one. It's very difficult to barrier an entire race like this on the cobbled sections.
Hier door de keel, denk ik, bij Seb van Marken op dit moment, maar zelfs ook vermoed ik bij Fabian Cancellara, een man die toch weet wat winnen is naar op de winnen van Roubaix.
Van Mark's played a great game so far. Is over. We have one more significant section of cobbles to go at 8K at Chem, but it's as I say, it's never over till it's over. Either one of these two riders could suffer a mechanical or have the same ill fate as Stibar.
Yes, well, we've seen it in the past actually.
Aye. Aye. Daar, John Thomas.
There is a Tom McAdam section on the left-hand side, and we will see the riders, going on to that to get the, the easiest ride possible. And we see.
Parta, de check. Ze het niet. Bardenas, Popovic.
From left to right to try and get the easiest way across the section at him, and had a rear puncture, but had enough of an advantage to make a bike change, make a wheel change, and go on to win the race. So as you say, it's never over, and certainly in a Paris-Roubaix with this section at him to come, it's a worrying moment. And as a rider, when you're out in front, you're always thinking a little bit about that, and you're always thinking, I make sure I get the right line. And take the risk of having a mechanical at this moment.
We're approaching the final section. That has any significance. There's a tiny section in the town itself, only 1 kilometer from the Roubaix velodrome, 1.5 laps when they get there. Fabian Cancellara had the most brilliant Tour de Flanders victory last week. Is now 47 seconds in advantage over Zdeněk Stibar, but he still has Sepp Van Mark with him. Van Mark's going to take a few less turns now, and you can see the head is bobbing around for Sepp Van Mark a little bit now. He must know he's in the position. But this is the final section of cobblestones. He's having a word with Sepp Van Mark.
It ain't going to happen.
No.
Sepp Van Mark, I think, will just follow the wheel of Cancellara. Try and get through the cobble sections, but here we go. He's going to take it up, and it is a one where it's surprising to see him doing that. I would thought he would just sit in the wheel of Cancellara, try and get through this section at him, because as you said, David, this is the chance of his life to get.
just flicked from side to side, and thankfully all the fans are out of the way on this one. This is the chasing group of Terpstra, Godin, Van Avermaet, Langeveld, Fletcher. Stibar is just ahead of them, 20 seconds. Impressive ride by Sepp van Mark.
Looking to be in difficulty, but again it was just a bluff all the time, and there was a number of groups up the road, but the advantage was never anything great that it could cause a problem. And of course when we see him, you know, up the pace there, he just came through groups very quickly. I think there was, you know, well under a minute between all those groups, and just closed it down very, very quickly. Good bluffer, and he's done it already today. And of course the team directors will see you know, what's happening here, because they all have got the TV in the car, so they will be relaying the information to the rider via the earpiece, via the radio. As we can see, Cancellara is the one who takes it up here. I was expecting Cancellara to maybe try something here, but does he feel confident enough that he can, you know, take this one in a sprint? Because as I said, I think it's a much better situation for Cancellara with Van Mark than it would have been with Stibar in a 2-up or a 3-up sprint.
They have now a minute in hand of Zdeněk Stibar, the Czech rider who got walloped apparently with a camera. He's still chasing like crazy, and he is on that final section in Hen now. What a dreadful time for Zdeněk Stibar. Well, two riders here have the biggest race day of their lives. Sepp van Mark and Zdeněk Stibar, with the greatest of the Cobble Classics riders for this year, Fabian Cancellara, and one of the greatest of all time. Both in with a shout of doing something here, and one of them wiped out by a spectator who either couldn't look where he was going, facing the wrong way, or just didn't have enough respect, frankly.
Pass Van Avermaet in het begin. Zitten ze. We zien van bien zitten.
Stibar's been joined by Juan Antonio Fletcher. And now Stibar has another wheel he can chase here. Oh, it's no good flicking your elbow, Juan Antonio. You must realize the poor man has been dropped from the other two. He ain't gonna come through and give you one turn. inside, almost inside the last 5 kilometers. That's where we are. That is the velodrome in Roubaix.
I love Roubaix. For some and not for others.
Absolutely. You've always said, Sean, isn't it, when people ask you, this is the most beautiful race to win and the least beautiful to ride.
Yes, and of course, you know, when you're performing well, you enjoy the race. But if you have a difficult day, through mechanic or not in good form, well, then it's a horrible race to ride.
Van Mark, the biggest win of his career so far to date would have been, was it? I don't know whether it was Het Nieuwsblad by that time, but Het Volk. It was probably in Het Nieuwsblad. No mean race in itself. And Zuidenek Stibar is back in this group.
Yes, and of course Seb Van Mark, did he arrive in the sprint with Tom Bone and actually beat Tom Bone?
He did.
So, you know, after a very long classic, a very difficult classic, you know, he can put up a good sprint, and that'll be an interesting one here on the velodrome in Roubaix. How much I think our 2 men in front have left in the tank, and that's always the situation at the end of the big classics, which, you know, are 255, 260 kilometers.
2 men. Out ahead, Seb Van Mark has within his sights the biggest win of his career by a long way. Fabian Cancellara has the ability. Here he goes. He's going to attack. Has the ability to go for a third. Oh, he's going to try and break Seb Van Mark. Well responded by Van Mark. He's still got to stick with him. And Seb Van Mark. Already they're playing with 4 kilometers to go. Cancellara tries to break him. Sees he's looking down at the bars. Flicks the elbow for him to come through. Oh, sneaky. That was sneaky. You flick the elbow for me to come through. I'll come through at 3 times the speed you expect me to. Van Mark now taking that break off the back, making sure that he's got plenty, nothing's going to hold him back. Well responded to by Seb Van Mark. A little flick of the elbow by Cancellara. You don't think that's going to work, do you? Maybe. He's just going to roll through. Oh. That's it. Go through very slowly, Seb. Block his way for sprinting again. Seb Van Mark has this biggest win of his career in his sights. Fabian Cancellara has another victory, possibly here. Would make it 3. The man with the biggest record, another cyclocross rider. So we were talking about Stibar earlier, Roger de Vlaming. 4 wins. Stibar in this group, and Fletcher is towing them along. And will it be another podium for Fletcher? Who knows? Langenholt back in this group, and they're playing around for 3rd here. Cancellara loosening his legs up as Van Mark does another turn here on the front. I fear he's going to get jumped again, Sean, didn't you?
Well, possible, but the opportunities to go in the attack, we did see when Cancellara went in the attack, it's a little bit uphill there, and it does hurt a lot at this point in the race, and it is certainly, you know, the moment to try something, and you know, Van Mark did real well to, you know, cling on to the wheel of Cancellara there. Cancellara, as I said, you know, he is not confident for the sprint, otherwise he would probably continue riding on here and just take it down to a sprint, but you know, going in the attack, he is concerned about Seb Van Mark for the final sprint on the velodrome here.
There's looking at each other going on here. Fabian Cancellara and Seb Van Mark cagily having a little look. Van Mark gets into the slipstream of Fabian Cancellara. 2 kilometers to go, and the elbow is flicked out by Cancellara again for Van Mark to come through. Looks behind him, still wants to just stay in that wheel there. Cancellara is going to play it. Well, he doesn't want to do all the work at the front here. Wants Van Mark to do something. Van Mark now doing a little bit of on-bike stretching. Cancellara is nervous, definitely nervous.
Yes, well, it's a Paris-Roubaix. You're with a rider who is, strong in the sprint, and Cancellara, we know he's not the greatest sprinters, but at the end of a big classic, well, then it's all about how much energy you've got left, and Seb Van Mark is not going to take it up anymore. He's just going to follow Cancellara, and he's the best position. Make the rider go all the way into the track and continue on, and you have to be in second position with a two-man sprint. If you can get a guy to lead you out onto the track, well, it is the best way, and surprised that Van Mark is taking it up here.
He doesn't want to be in second spot on the cobbles. That's the issue here. He didn't want to in Hem, he doesn't want to here. It's only a short section in the center of town. He's playing a very...
Regarde le Nico, il est là. T'inquiète, les gens vont crier.
On the outside of the bend again. And Cancellara fears this. They're going to be with us very, very shortly. Running in towards the velodrome. And Cancellara does not want to give an inch to Seb Van Mark. Here they go.
Dans quelques secondes, Fabian
It's ending up in a track sprint. They're right up on the banking, and Cancellara wants to hold him. Oh, it's like the World Cup. Oh, I'm not sure that's the position that Van Mark wants to be. Is he going to ride up the banking? Who'd have thought?
Fabian Cancellara, le champion olympique, 4 fois champion du monde, le grand favori avec son outsider, Van Mark. Il reste un tour à couvrir maintenant, un tour de piste, Van Mark en tête, Cancellara juste derrière lui. Oh, l'attention est forte et la table son paroxysme.
Looking pensive getting on those drops. Van Mark's going to have to lead this sprint out. Just winding it up a little bit now. Cancellara still got it in the tank. Van Mark is going jump, ride him up the velodrome. That's it. Van Mark goes for it. He's out of the saddle, but unfortunately Cancellara looks in the better position at the moment. He's coming around the outside. Seb Van Mark is beaten to the line by Fabian Cancellara, who takes his third win. What a fabulous finish. And they go over the top of the chasing riders. Magnificent win, and Cancellara manipulated the situation to get into the better position for the sprint than Seb Van Mark. What a great finish. This is the race for third. It's a drag race to the end. It looks like Nicky. Fabian Cancellara adds another Paris-Roubaix to his tally. First one back in 2006. He'd been in the bunch sprint, the group sprint. Takes third from Greg Van Avermaet, and then Damien Goudin Zdeněk Štýbar is with us now, underneath our commentary point. Then Sebastian Lange. Fabian Cancellara. Well, I think that really has genuinely taken it out of him, Sean.
Can win in a sprint, and I don't think there was anything between the two riders. Sprint-wise, I think they were pretty well matched. It was just that Cancellara had a little bit more power left.
What a race. That's a really fantastic Paris-Roubaix this year. Fine ride by Štýbar, fine ride by Sepp van Mark. Finney is coming in now. Looks like Roland's. Fine weather greeting Paris-Roubaix. Great for everybody who gets to the end of this race. It's terrific. Cancellara takes a third Paris-Roubaix. Can hardly walk. By a bike length over Sepp van Mark. Twice fallen this week. Once to second place for Sepp van Mark, but another Paris-Roubaix. 3 times now for the Swiss rider and 4-time world time trial champion Fabian Cancellara. He had to work hard from young Sepp van Mark. But having won the Tour of Flanders last weekend, he was absolutely the hot favourite to take this win, but he fell twice in the week. Fell twice in the week, and there was some question marks as to whether he'd be okay, and clearly a little bit sore, but what a collection of those. You can almost build a driveway now. I'm always amazed how they can do that. It weighs a bit, that. And after riding 202 kilometers, he can pick it up and put it over his head. Yep. Magnificent. Well, has he got 4 in him, I wonder? Wouldn't put it past him, would you? 4 wins for Roger de Vlaming, who's incidentally a very good cyclocross rider. Although his brother was better, Eric. Francesco Moser, a 3-time winner, is joined by Fabian Cancellara as a 3-time winner. Johan Museeuw, likewise. No, there's such an illustrious list of names here. Rick van Looy, another 3-time winner here in Paris-Roubaix. Well, you picked that stone up, Sean. How'd you do it after 200+ kilometers? Just the adrenaline?
Yes, I think it's just the adrenaline flow, and just the moment that's in it, and it's amazing the weight of it when they catch it up.
Bravo.
I don't have the engine in the bike, guys. You want something sweet? No. Water? Nothing, just, I don't know.
Did you actually leave the watch on?
No.
Pressed your wrist probably.
No, but I think the hands are okay. Yeah. It's just the whole rest of the body is just, how I can say, flat fucked.
Fabian, can you take us through the velodrome spread?
I don't know, actually. Don't ask me from 40k to the finish line how I did it. I told already before to the people out there that just, you go in another world and you're just pedaling and you try to not give up, because this race is really made to to not give up because the finish line is there, and I didn't even saw this finish line because it was this black sponsor, I don't know what was this black spots on the ground and cramps all over the body, and I had to play like Russian roulette on the end because I could lose, I could win, and of course when you win is always better than losing because when you have everyone against you, everyone against the team, then of course it's even harder. It's always nice you could finish alone here, but to maybe put the bike on and passing the finish line, but on the end what counts is the victory because the rest, let's just show. I mean, the importance is we have this win, and I'm really happy with the double and happy of having a rest and holiday and not get too bummed when we go back with the bus to the hotel with Popovic's DJ music. They were waiting and already celebrating, and the whole OCU was celebrating this great win for Trek and for the whole team. Of course, it's a team effort, but it's also a supporting effort. And thank you guys, and we go on now. But I go in holiday.
Now I ask myself after 250 plus kilometers how you can do that, but you can see Cancellara there, quite comfortably doing it. 10 minutes, 15 minutes ago he was, really looking tired, but when you win the race, it's amazing where you get the energy from, and you can recover so quickly.
Amazing.
Est supérieur à 44 km/h.